Approval of the regular city commission meeting minutes for August 20th, 2024, and our special city commission meeting minutes of September 4th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes, our police pension fund meeting minutes of June 27th, African American Heritage Board meeting minutes of July 11th, Code Compliance meeting minutes of July 26th, and Hillsborough Inlet District meeting minutes of August 19th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Parnas, seconded by Commissioner Preston. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Approval of our agenda tonight for September 23rd, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Parnas. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Madam Clerk.
For those attending via Zoom online wishing to speak under public comment or on an item that's open for public input, please click raise hand at the bottom under the reactions tab, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gantz. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gantz. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you.
Items number 1 and 2 on tonight's agenda are the final millage rate and budget ordinances for fiscal year 2025. I'm going to read the titles into the record for both items. We will need separate votes on both items, and then I'll read a short statement pursuant to Florida law and turn it over to the city manager for the presentation. Item number 1 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting the millage rate to be levied by the city for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, stating the percentage change by which the millage rate exceeds the rollback rate as computed pursuant to Section 200.065 Florida statutes, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. Item number 2 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting the final budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, authorizing encumbrances and carry forward of funding to fulfill outstanding purchase orders, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. The City of Deerfield Beach final operating millage for fiscal year 2025 is 6.0018 mils, which is 8.9% more than the rollback rate of 5.5112 mils calculated pursuant to Florida law. The voted debt service millage for fiscal year 2025 is equal to 0.1833 mils for a total overall millage rate equal to 6.1851. Turn it over to the city manager for the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, members of the public. This is the second reading and final adoption of the millage rate and budget for the City of Deerfield Beach. And just to bring us through how we got here and the things and the steps that took place prior to this meeting, we had our 2 days worth of budget workshops back in June 12th and 13th. On August 9th, we transmitted to you the budget message as well as the proposed budget with exceeding the deadline of August 15th. On August 28th, we had a subsequent budget presentation where we went through a lengthy presentation on the proposed budget as well as the millage rate and revenue and expenditure reviews. That same presentation was provided to you and the public on September 9th. And at that same meeting, the non-ad valorem assessments were also adopted by the City Commission, that being the fire assessment fee, the nuisance abatement, and the stormwater fees. That takes us to today, which again is the final adoption of the budget. With the extensive discussion and presentation that we've had, this is a much abbreviated version of the presentation. We do have slides from the previous presentations available should you have any questions or want to walk through that. But this is mainly to summarize for the second reading. So as the city attorney had stated, the operating millage rate is recommended to stay the same this year at the 6.0018. Our debt millage rates are going down. So the overall millage rate for the city of Deerfield Beach is going down to 6.1851. Thank you. The total estimated tax collection for the property tax is going to be 66.48 million. Of course, a portion of that goes back to the CRA. That is estimated to be 2.85 million with a projected net general fund tax collection of 63.63 mils. 1 mil generates approximately 10.7 of ad valorem tax revenue. And as the city attorney mentioned, there's approximately an 8.86 net increase in taxable values of properties at about $11.3 billion taxable value across the entire city. As a recap, the proposed budget by fund is presented on this slide. In previous presentations, we did discuss what those changes are, what they represented, what those expenditures were and why. But the total proposed FY 2025 budget is $360,751,980 with a roughly $12.25 million increase in the overall budget.
It's an Amber Alert.
Is it just me?
Yes. Yes, Amber Alerts only go to you.
No, I came out of my phone.
It's all of ours.
Okay.
My apologies.
No,
I'll tell you all to silence your phones, but I don't think it's going to help.
okay, I think
Thanks,
hopefully
Dave.
we're good. No problem. Just to recap some of the major general fund impacts this year, we are seeing a $2 million increase in the fire rescue contractual services, as well as a $1.7 million increase in the law enforcement contracted services. Overall health insurance is expected to increase by 2.5 million. Personnel services in the general fund by 2.6. We're seeing a property insurance increase of 655,000. The charges for water, sewer, and solid waste back to the general fund, the increase there is approximately $371,400. Additionally, we have budgeted $500,000 this year for our centennial celebration, which will be spread out across many of our signature events, culminating in a centennial celebration on or around the actual centennial of the city. We're also recommending increasing that's okay. We're also recommending increasing our landscape services contract to accommodate for increased levels of service, particularly with irrigation, to ensure that the hard work that we're doing with our medians currently will not be affected by no irrigation. Additionally, there's 12.1 million coming from transfers out of the general fund to the general fund capital fund. We talked about this extensively over the past two meetings where we discussed the budget, but to recap them, there's a $3.9 million use of reserve for general capital fund projects that will begin in FY 25. Additionally, we are transferring $4 million from the undesignated fund balance to a reserve balance of $4 million for the FAU Research Boulevard project, which would be reimbursed by the proceeds of the 1045 community contributions that we will receive in latter years. Additionally, there are carry forwards that are related to the ARPA funding that the city received. So we have $4.6 million worth of projects that were designated from ARPA that will be carried forward, as well as general fund capital projects in, approximately 8.4 million. So the overall general fund increase is $28.6 million. No, that does not equal the overall increase in the general fund, and that's because we make adjustments and cuts in other areas in order to balance the budget. The proposed budget revenues by all sources are shown here. So again, you can see that ad valorem increase of approximately 4.4 million. The local option sales and fuel taxes is associated with the surtax projects and funding that comes from the county at 5.4 million. Also seeing increases expected in the utility services taxes and several others here, but notably looking at charges for service across all funds, which includes the utility, stormwater, solid waste funds. Those are increases based off of rate increases that the city commission adopted and subsequent five-year plans for various reasons. Additionally, you can see the transfers in, which are really non-revenues. Those are transfers from fund to fund that are required to meet GASB requirements. And those, you can see an increase of those various transfers of approximately $3 million. You do see our debt proceeds going down by $7.3 million and the use of fund balance overall going down by 5.1 or close to $5.2 million. The debt proceeds, I want to just take a quick second to just talk about that. You know, we talk about the millage rate and the keeping the operating millage rate stable. You see the debt service millage rate going down. You see a reduction in the debt proceeds, which overall means that there's a less of a reliance of the city on debt service funds and other capital financing mechanisms. Yes, we do loans through the general fund and other ones, but what we're seeing and the ability of the city through its economic development activity to maintain the operating millage rate and use the operating millage rate to fund much of the operations and more capital projects that have been placed into the 5-year CIP and less of a reliance on debt service. So in summary, the millage rate operating for FY25 is 6.0018, unchanged. You are seeing a reduction in the debt service millage of approximately 0.0687 mils, and the fire assessment fee for FY25 remains unchanged at $315 per ERU or residential unit. But that's the conclusion of this abbreviated presentation. Again, I do have the previous presentation should you have any questions on any particular items that we presented earlier.
Thank you. Commission, before I open to public comments, questions? No? Thank you, Mr. Santucci. Anyone from the public care to comment on item number 1?
Dan Hirsch, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. Good evening. The proposed fiscal year 25 operating millage rate is 6.0018, which represents an increase of almost 9% over the rollback rate. And such percentage change is characterized as the percentage increase in property taxes pursuant to Section 200.065 Florida statute. There are many cities in South Florida that are lowering their operating millage rate. Such a city is Port St. Lucie, who will be dropping their millage rate for the 9th consecutive year. In those 9 years, their rate has been lowered by 1.58 mils. Their city manager is named Jesus Marejo, and his phone number is 772-871-5163. And his email is cmo@cityofpsl.com. I suggest our city manager give Jesus a call before his last day so he can find out the mystery of how a city can lower their millage rate 9 years in a row without having to fire police or firemen or slash essential services. By the way, Jesus and his wife Ismalia actually live in Port St. Lucie. The taxpayers can only hope that the next city manager has a different philosophy. It is nothing but arrogance that could lead one to think that a city bureaucrat knows better how to spend excess taxpayer dollars compared to the taxpayers themselves. And this happened during a time when the federal government gave the city of Deerfield Beach over $16 million. Even a direct order from some city commissioners to the city manager on his performance review goals to lower the operating millage rate fell on deaf ears. I hope whoever the new city manager is can understand that it is perfectly fine and correct to make sure city employees are compensated fairly. It is perfectly fine and correct to make sure our police and fire are the best prepared they can possibly be. It is perfectly fine to float $40 million general revenue bonds to pay for new community facilities like the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging and the Johnny Lee Tigner Community Center. But when it comes time to give the taxpayer some property tax relief, even a small amount like $100, which could be a significant amount to a senior citizen on a fixed income, there's never any money to do that. If we did that, we would have to drastically cut city services. I wonder who you think actually believes that fairy tale. But now when it comes time to consider a new city hall and civic center complex, there is plenty of money for that. We've actually started spending on focus groups and public relations firms. Like I said, I hope the new city manager has the vision and foresight to stop treating the taxpayers as if we are the lowest priority, even though the organizational chart in the new city budget for 2025 still says the taxpayers are at the very top of the chart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel Shinetsky, 34 Keswick B, District 3, Deerfield Beach. I firmly believe in keeping the millage rate balanced and reasonable. Believe me, I understand what it's like to look at a paycheck and make sure you have enough for taxes. I know it's very important, but I also believe it is in Deerfield Beach best interest to make sure that our fire service, the resources and the assessment balance each other, and that we have enough money for the future. Because we need to ask ourselves, are we reducing fire services or are we missing out on anything crucial? I think we need to be a proactive city. And we're doing that right now by budgeting and creating better storm wastewater facilities. And we don't want to have the same problems that other cities in Broward have with services and aging infrastructure. We don't want to kick the can down the road. Now, with commercial property, I understand they pay by the square foot, and the resources required to put out a fire in a commercial property is going to far exceed what would be needed for a single-family home or apartment or condo. Now, due to the growth and development over the next 3 to 5 years in Deerfield Beach with commercial property, I just think that it's important to make sure that our assessments, our fire assessments, our money, it meets each other and we have enough for everything. I think that fire service should always be a priority in the city.
Thank you.
Good evening, Lucia Del Genio, 707 North Shore Drive. I want to second Mr. Daniel Hurst. Totally believe that way. And to Mr. Shinesky, we don't need to cut anything essential to use the money for in a better way. Just know how to prioritize. We don't need to suffer. Just need to be responsible spenders of the people's money. And I'm part of the people, so I feel like I'd like to second Mr. Hurst. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Patricia Link, 252 Ventnor R, Deerfield Beach. I just wanted to say this freebie ride thing.
That has nothing to do.
Oh,
that's
sorry,
not in
but
this
it's part of
though,
the
ma'am. Part of
budget?
the CRA.
Oh,
You
okay.
get it on the next item, I believe, when we talk about the CRA budget.
Oh, so I can't talk about that. When will I be able to talk about
I
that?
just said, when we
Next-
get to the CRA budget.
Oh, okay. Will that be
Yeah.
tonight?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh,
Isn't that
thank
part
you.
of it?
Item number 3.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Commissioners, Mayor. Maria Larico, 1551 Southeast 12th Street. Generally, when we speak that we can take down the millage rate, you counter with what services do you want to give up? I just don't see that is the conversation we should be having. Here's the reason why. The people pay their taxes. We have people that contribute well greater than others. We have others that well less. And when you come to saying, who's going to go without an ambulance ride? Who's going to look at burnt grass? All these things need to be taken care of. We know that. But the flip side of that coin is, where is our growth? Where is the vision? Where are we going as Deerfield Beach? The burden is on the taxpayers continually, because we are not looking at attracting businesses. There should be a plan in place of how we go about bringing businesses to Deerfield Beach. You have every other town developing. And when we hear the word developing, Deerfield Beach doesn't want to lose its beauty. And we think, oh no, that'd be the worst thing that could happen to us. We are talking about responsible business moving here. What are we doing to increase our revenue so we could take the burden off of the taxpayers without lessening regular services that every other town produces for their residents? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Clark-Louie, go right ahead. Former representative.
Thank you, Mayor. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 608. I'd like to know about the Bezos Center. How does that fit in our budget? I didn't see anything or recall seeing any mention of what that is. There a revenue that we're getting back from the operation of that? Could someone just explain the whole operation over there on the Bezos Center?
And how it affects the current budget?
Yes, and how it affects the current budget, yes.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on? Anyone else? And close it to the public then. Commission comments? Anything? Just a couple of things. You know what our budget is. You know what we're spending the money on. We have all these workshops. The simple question is, okay, your taxes aren't going up if your values didn't go up, because we're lowering the millage rate. You can talk about the operating millage rate, but what you're actually taxed upon is the millage rate. No, that you can shake your head no, but it's the facts. Tell me it's not. If your value is the same as it was last year and it's going this year, your taxes should go down slightly because our millage rate has gone down. It's that simple. If your taxes went up, your city of Deerfield Beach tax portion went up, it's because your values went up. That's what happens. So in order to cut it, 1 mil equals over $10 million. We ask, you know what we're spending our money on? Do you not want us to spend it on those things? Previously, it's interesting to have somebody that has blasted the Braithwaite Center when we were developing that, went out for a bond on that, didn't want us to do that, didn't want us to do that at the Tigner Center, which we just had a ribbon cutting. Those people who said that are in the audience here tonight asking us, why are you spending money on our next line of those things, celebrating those very things which they told us not to build? If you don't want us to build those things, tell us, but you don't want to. We do have a plan. We have an economic development plan. And obviously, if your taxes are going up, that means your values are going up, which is kind of part of our job, is to make sure that your values go up, because that's the biggest investment you have. To say that $100 decrease in the budget is going to happen to someone on a fixed income, well, it's not really going to work that way. And here's why. If I reduce $2.5 million out of our budget right now, that's going to give the average taxpayer a savings of $62 a year. $62. It's going to be far less than that for someone on a fixed income, because the value of their property isn't at the average usually. Look at condos over in, let's say, Century Village. Those values aren't very high. That means it's going to take an awful lot to save those people $100 to do that. If I took $5 million out of our budget, $124 for the average single family residence is what it would say. That's $12 a month or $10 a month. That's a lot to cut out. That's why we ask you, what do you want us to cut? We've already shown you the stats that show us when you look at the average values of everyone in Broward County, we're on the extremely low end. Extremely low end. And that has done nothing but increase. We're gaining, but we're not there. So then we ask, well, what do you want to cut? And I guess that's a question that no one wants to answer. Open to it, happy to listen to it, but I don't hear it. I get these vague, well, lessen the burden. Okay, we are, because if you look at what has gone up, because we all know what inflation is, do you think the cost for things in the city has gone down? City's costs have gone up just like everyone else's. We've shown you what has gone up, and we ask you, what do you want to cut? So I don't hear that. If you want to do an apples to apples comparison, I guess when you bring up, well, look at Delray and they lower their millage rate, and I point out the fact of what it took for them to lower it just a sliver, I guess suddenly we drop that example because it kind of blew up in your face. So let's bring up Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie that has 230,000 people in that city, who has an $807 million budget. They might have a little more leeway than the rest of us. Maybe they do, because maybe they're not one of the lowest overall average values in their county. Not really sure, but you got to be pretty desperate to start stretching for a town of 230,000 people when we have 85,000 in our city. All right. So I haven't heard any suggestions on what to cut. Those are the kind of things that we do want your feedback on. I haven't heard any. So thank you. Can we get an answer on the Bezos Center, please?
So the Bezos Center, Mayor, if you remember, we did include a preschool in the overall cost for the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging. And we had the opportunity to enter into an agreement with the Bezos Academy to bring that free tuitioned Montessori-styled education here in Deerfield Beach, free tuition. We looked at the numbers, and I think, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the cost of the preschool building was going to double for us. But at the same time, they were going to be able to serve double the population that we were anticipating would be housed in the preschool that we were going to build originally. And on top of that, we had historically operated our preschool at a cost to the city. So in other words, the tuition that we were charging was far less than the costs and the expenditures that we were incurring on an annual basis. And this would allow us to not incur any operating costs moving forward. And I want to say the payoff was about 10 years for the additional capital cost as it relates to the operating costs that we anticipated incurring. So the costs for the Bezos Academy, just to summarize, were incorporated into the capital expenditure, and there are no operating costs moving forward.
Thank you. It brings up a good point, because when there's certain information that floats out there that people say that our budget has gone up and we've gone over on some of these projects. Well, yeah, two of them we did, Tignish Center and Braithwaite. And the reason why is because we added size to it. We almost doubled the size of the Tignish Center. Of course, that's going to cost more money. And we did that based on public feedback. Braithwaite Center, when Bezos came in, yes, our budget went up, but not because we were over budget and couldn't control the spending on it. It's because we brought in the Bezos Academy, allows us to double the amount of people that we're able to serve. And that's a good thing. So when you hear some of this information, please check it, because a lot of people like to lie through omission. So please make sure you get your facts straight. Thank you.
Motion to approve item 1.
Sorry, Commissioner.
I just want to say that, Ms. Lorico, you were saying, where is the vision for building our city, welcoming businesses? When I drive through other cities, I see it's just booming all over the place. But let me also tell you, many of the people who live in your district sit right here in this chamber and say, I don't want that in our city. So when you ask that question, you have to remember that there has to be a measure of fairness and understanding to the question. Many of the people here in the city of Deerfield Beach say, we don't want to look like Boca Raton. We don't want to look like Pompano. So when you say where are the businesses are there and they're more than welcome to whatever. But I want to tell you, the residents of Deerfield Beach isn't embracing that like you say it. So that has to be taken into consideration. And the point that I'm making is that this board, this commission has not somehow shown a hostility against businesses coming in. We don't want you here. That's not what we have said. But I will tell you, this commission is listening to its residents. And when you have people sitting there saying, we don't want this in our neighborhood, we don't want to, we like what we have, you have to listen to that side as well. That's listening to the resident. But if you're saying we should ignore the residents and say we're going to boom just like Pompano, you know, we would get criticized for that as well. So when those comments are made, you got to keep into consideration the fact of the matter is that there are businesses that are continuing to come to Deerfield, and we don't look like Boca and we don't look like Pompano. The reason is the residents don't want it.
Thank you. Good point. Commission, looking for a motion? We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak.
Second.
We have a tie for second, but we'll see. Commissioner Preston, I'll go with you. A motion a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
No.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 2 is the fiscal year 2025 budget.
Motion to approve item number 2.
I think
Second.
we're going to open that up also to the public. Anyone from the public here to speak on item number 2? And you want to announce what item number 2 is, please, Anthony? So, Mr. Hurst, one moment.
Don't start the clock yet.
Oh yeah, I did read it into the record before, Mayor. It is adopting the final budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Hurst. Go ahead.
He's getting better. Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. First, I wanted to clarify something from 2 weeks ago. The taxpayers were previously told by the city manager that the contract with Calvin Giordano and Associates expires on June 30th, 2025, which is definitely during the upcoming fiscal year. The taxpayers were told CGA wanted a 40% increase, bringing the annual cost of the contract from $1 million to $1.4 million. The commission ordered the city manager to compute what the cost would be to bring code enforcement back in-house and not renew the CGA contract with the city. That discussion took place many months ago, and the taxpayers have heard nothing since then. I want to reiterate the contract expires during this upcoming fiscal year. What I find so disingenuous about this year's budget presentation is there is virtually no discussion about significant expense increases. Insurance expenses are going up by over $1.5 million. There is no analysis of this huge increase to show if anybody is looking at potential ways to reduce this increase. There is also almost no explanation for the hiring increases proposed by the city manager. All the taxpayers get is the following. The budget includes adjustments to personnel services that will enhance operations. So much for transparency. I sat through all 3 budget workshops. Not once did I hear a department head speak about how much money they saved the taxpayers by implementing X, Y, or Z. Isn't that important to anyone in top management? I hope the new city manager will understand what the current city manager never could. I bring up these issues to help the city in an attempt to learn and adapt to new best practices. Unfortunately, the taxpayers never did get the Tom Brady of city managers. We instead got the Ryan Leaf of city managers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? No one online? Okay, we're going to close it to the public. I'm sorry?
John Schlatt.
Mr. Slattery, go ahead.
Hello. So I have a question. So.
I'm sorry, your name and address for the record.
Yes, John Slattery, 1455 Southeast Fifth Place, Deerfield Beach. So on the previous item, there was a dissenting vote from the dais with no explanation. I would love to know what the dissenting vote was for or why it happened, other than a possible campaign position in the future.
Thank you. I think it was explained at the last meeting. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah, we do. I think we just close it. Anyone else have any comments on that? I do want to say, I do want to say this, and I want to, at least we talk about accurate statements and things like that. And, you know, I think the city manager covered most of this in our budget workshops when we talk about we're adding these positions, or there was a request, because when we have the budget workshops, it's really the request of our department heads of what that, you know, what they want. The city manager then goes through it and makes some cuts there. And we have the ability to give feedback, just like the public has the ability to give feedback. And those were covered. I think, you know, why do we need those positions? I think that was covered. It was stated, you know, why do we need those positions? So I guess I'm a little baffled. If it wasn't, I believe it was. So I'm not sure where that comes from, but I do want to, you know, for the sake of accuracy and making sure we get things straight, I do want to apologize to Mr. Hers. At the last meeting, I stated that you had 5 properties and your total increase for the year of the 5 investment properties you own are $87.54. I was inaccurate in that, and I apologize. It's actually 6 properties, not 5. So I apologize. It's still the 87.54, but it's 6 properties. So my apologies for getting that wrong.
Stuff for government.
There you go. Thank you. Commissioner Parnas, then Vice Mayor Drosky.
I was gonna motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Vice Mayor Drosky, before we look for a second.
Thank you, Mayor. I must have been at a different meeting than the resident, because I thought it was very specific at the last meeting as to what my no vote was for the millage and the budget and the stormwater fee. So be happy to speak to the resident and offline and go through all my comments. But in general, I just didn't think that this budget measured up for the reason for my no vote. You talk about reasons or where we can cut. There in the mini presentation we had tonight and in the main presentation we had at the last meeting, there was a slide that showed the 2.6 million for increase in personnel services. The 2 nights that we had the budget workshops, there was 0 explanation for what those positions would be, or why they were needed, or what additional value they would bring to the city. There was an attempt after the fact to do so, but in my opinion, the attempt didn't measure up. So the 2.6 million is where I would begin with any potential cuts to the budget. There's more in there, but I can certainly count. And knowing that I'm on the short end, I don't need to go through all of that again tonight. But I did explain at the last meeting the basis for my vote.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Parnas, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
No?
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
We are now on item number 3. Item number 3 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the budget for the Deerfield Beach Community Redevelopment Agency for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, providing for funding through tax increment financing as provided for in Part 3, Chapter 163 of Florida statutes, providing for severability and an effective date.
Thank you. City Manager, any more presentation on this?
No, Mayor, these presentations were covered under the CRA meetings to the CRA board and those in attendance.
Thank you. Ms. Link, I know you wanted to speak. This would be the item you'd speak on about freebie. So I'm going to open it to the public. You want to come on up?
Good evening and thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say about the budget. You know, I'm sure I don't know that much about it because I didn't go over it like you men did. But what I'm concerned about is I looked at two things that are probably very minute and doesn't matter to you guys, and probably very little money and it doesn't matter. But to me, if you get the little things, that kind of takes care of helping fund for the bigger things. And one of them was the electric cars. I know the electricity, you said it's very minute, but it's still giving free electric to people who have electric cars. So you're being very specific on who you're giving something free to. If I had an electric car, then it's up to me to get my own charger, not to get free electric somewhere else. To enjoy the beach and get free electric. The other thing that I was concerned about was the freebie. Now, the freebie rides are to understand that it's helped to draw people to the businesses in the Cove. I understand that. But the thing is, I've been in government, been involved in businesses with my government job. I don't think government should have any role in helping businesses. You make it or you break it. If you can make it anywhere in New York, you can make it anywhere. Well, right? I'm a New Yorker. But I don't feel that we people who don't have electric cars and have our own cars and can't even afford to go out to dinner, as many people can't afford to go out to dinner and drink, should get a free ride that costs $60, $70 each way for freebie to go after 4 o'clock at night so that they can have parking for their businesses. A business is responsible for themselves. We are not responsible to get the people to go there and pay for their transportation like an Uber. I don't go for Uber. It's expensive to go for Uber, except when I'm going to the airport, then I have to. I have no choice. So what I'm trying to say is that I think even though it may be a little bit of money, we are not responsible to pay for people to go out to dinner. It's after 4 o'clock at night. Most older people that don't want to drive don't go out that late shopping or to Publix or anywhere like that. They're not taking them to church. They're not taking them to the senior center. These are for people that want to go out and eat and drink. And might be a little bit of money, but why are we paying for it? As
Ms. Lake, appreciate it.
I thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I want to thank the city for posting the monthly freebie ridership numbers on the city website. The most recent August numbers show the cost per ride is now $58.61. Since the CRA is allocating an additional $300,000 for rideshare, when will it be appropriate for the CRA department to come up with performance goals for freebie? Are the taxpayers being asked to accept a cost per ride that is at least 6 times higher than what Uber charges? How many of the 9 advertisers appearing on the freebie app under the deals section are actually paying cash for this advertising? Will we ever get to a fraction of the advertising revenue freebie promised the city? Will freebie ever start reaching out to Century Village and the HOAs like they promised? No accountability to the taxpayers is not something the CRA should be proud of. Regarding the eventual $10 million cost for the Sawgrass to Seagrass Museum, I understand the demolition of the Chamber building has begun. This would make one believe that the operating agreement with the Museum of Discovery and Science, or MODS, is almost ready for presentation to the CRA board. At the August 20th CRA board meeting, the CRA director presented Joe Cox, MODS president and CEO. It made the taxpayers think an agreement was imminent under some arrangement the CRA director called best interest procurement process. By coincidence, 2 days after Mr. Cox's presentation, I ran into him at a Fort Lauderdale Chamber event. He told me discussions with the CRA were very broad at this juncture, and there had been no discussion of any operating details or agreements. Now, 1 month later, before the City Commission has asked for a final approval vote on a project that will eventually cost $10 million, it would be nice to hear from the CRA director for an update on the operational details, especially since it looks like there will be no other potential museum operator under the terms of what the CRA director called best interest procurement process. The ceremony held this last Saturday morning to begin demolition of the chamber was by invitation only. One would think there would be someone with the knowledge and history of the chamber building, like the mayor or the District 1 commissioner, who could have told the invite committee that if it was not for my $200,000 loan to the Deerfield Beach Chamber, the building would have been foreclosed on by the bank, and the city and CRA, which had no money at the time, would never have had the chance to buy the building years later. I am sure it was just a mere oversight on the CRA's part. Am I correct, CRA director?
Thank you. Anyone else? Nice delayed response. Excellent. Anyone else?
Hello, James Kopkowski, 2159 Discovery Circle West. My fellow resident brought up the charging stations. I would like to know if you ever gave the residents a hard number, how much that cost. I remember being at one meeting here and we were told the costs were nominal, but I don't know if we ever got a hard number, and could that be made available to us? Because to me, that sounds like we'll ever speak Weasley words to hide the cost. If it's 20 cents or 200,000, we'd like to know the number. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then close it to the public. Anyone? Close it to the public. That you want to speak, sir? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close it to the public then. One thing that was probably not figured into this, when we talk about the rideshare, when will it ever? It's a 6 months into a pilot program to do this. I don't know what the expectations for success are, and I think the point's well taken. And it's not just the speakers tonight. There's others that have spoke about it that said, let's come up with some hard measurements as far as what our goals are on it. I think they need to probably be a little more hardwired on that for people to feel good about it. As we've said at the CRA meeting, with the CRA budget, really the taxpayers are paying a third of what you would if this service was something we would pay out of our general fund. The reason why, as I explained before, CRA money is taken from tax revenue increment value, whatever taxes we gained on the values of those properties when the CRA was first started. That's where we get this pool of money. That money would normally be sent with a third of it approximately going to the school board, a third of it going to Broward County, and the third of it going to the city of Deerfield Beach to spend whatever they are. It's about leveraging tax dollars. So we had the ability to basically pay a third of the cost of something to provide it. As we have free shuttle service, we have free buses in the city, and I don't see people attacking that. This seems to be a convenient thing to attack just because of the people who brought up the idea, as opposed to really looking at the benefit of having a free rideshare program. You might have the money to be able to afford it, but there are people that don't have the money to afford it. Part of it is having a safer route, because people go down to the beach area and they do over imbibe. So we want to keep that safe, and this is an alternative that they have. We also know that people go down there and have a hard time parking, and the parking's difficult. This eliminates part of that. People say, well, the wait times are too long. I can wait for an Uber, and the wait times aren't as long. Well, the reason why is because there's a lot more Uber drivers out there, and you're paying that money directly out of your pocket. If you take 85,000 people that are in our city and divide what we're spending on freebie, how much is it really costing you? I got a couple pennies in my pocket. I'll hand it to you and we'll cover you for the year. That's the way I look at it. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I think I am, as we mostly do when we have our own opinions. But I think you got to give it a chance to be able to develop and come forward. When you start complaining about a pilot program 2 months into it, you know you're only complaining about it because someone came up with the idea. Because that's really dumb to attack a pilot program 2 months into it. I don't care what business you're doing, what you're starting up. It's going to take longer than 2 months to get it rolling. So I don't quite understand it. I will say that I do think we need to have some stronger parameters as far as what we look as benchmarks to move things up on that. But it's amazing that there are cities that would love to have a free ride share. You see that coming about everywhere, including Boca Raton, who certain people like to praise. In other areas, they're doing it. But we do it and we get attacked for it. I find it odd. I think if we give it a chance, I think it'll be a worthwhile thing, much like most of these projects are. As far as the demolishing of the old Chamber of Commerce building, I'm very sorry that we took away that revenue stream for you, Mr. Hers. I would imagine you were probably upset about that, but it was a good decision for us to buy that at the time and do this. One thing that was not brought up is we got a $3.36 million grant from the Florida Inland Navigational District to go towards this project. So apparently they saw the value in having something like this and having the Museum of Discovery. I don't know how many other museums in Broward County to that level are out there, but when you have the top one wanting to participate, I don't think you start looking for the Barnum and Bailey version because it might be cheaper. It's not going to cost us on the operational cost moving forward. And if you want us to stop the construction of the project while we work out, which is going to be a long project, something we can work out in the next few months, I think we'll be okay. I don't quite understand, again, the outrage. I think it's not about the project itself. It's, again, about the people who brought the idea forward that they're attacking. Just like they attacked the Tigner Center and are now praising it and eating the free meal on Saturday, or saying the same thing about the Braithwaite Center, which they didn't want us to do. And now we all see what a great project it was. What I ask all of you is to be patient, take a look at these projects. If we get them wrong, let us know, but give it a chance, because I can tell you, you'll end up showing up at the ribbon cutting and posing like you participated in it when you were blasting it when we were building it. So I ask you to please give that all a break, but I want to thank staff on the fact that we got a $3.36 million grant to go towards that project. And that's a tremendous accomplishment. So thank you, staff, on that. As far as, and it's a good question, what is the cost? Do we know the cost? And we need to find out that cost and what it's costing us for the free charging stations down at the beach. It's interesting. We have some people that say they want it. We have some people that say, I just saw somebody this weekend and said, hey, thank you so much for doing that. They have others that don't want it. So I understand the disparity, but I think it is important for us to know the exact cost and what that costs for us to put that in there. So if we can come up with that answer. And it's a unique position to take to say government shouldn't be helping out any businesses at all. We shouldn't be driving traffic to our business or anything like that. We can cut our economic development budget out right now if that was the position we were going to take. I don't think that's a very popular position. And I can tell you the business community would be really curious on that to explain that position on it. But thank you for sharing your opinion on it. I think, is that everything? I think so. Yes. Do we know the cost on that, on the,
Mayor, I don't have an exact cost on that, so I'd prefer not to give you an estimate, but we can certainly get that cost and report it back to you.
can we please have that? And we'll get that for you, sir. Where's he at? Okay. Commissioner Preston?
Yes, and I want to say something to all the residents in our city. Your city is growing. It's getting better in a lot of ways, offering services that it did not have before. But to give an image that the rideshare program is simply there for people who want to go and eat and drink and then get a free ride home is an unfair characterization of really what's happening. Some people might actually do that, but there are other people also that use it that I've talked to that had trouble getting to the doctor's office for their health. And they used the freebie, told me what a great service it was because other than that, they couldn't get to a doctor's appointment. Then there were other people, some of the elderly people that live in some of the place, in some of our, the housing authority, centers that told me they have problem getting to the grocery store. Now you have the freebie ride service will go to any district, but you have to end up in, the CRA district. And so some people use that service to go and to do a little shopping for themselves because they have problem having a friend or family give them a ride just to simply survive. And so when we don't look at the entire picture, it's very easy to get it slanted. There are people that are using this service that we did not have before to take care of their health, to go, and they're not really beholden to anyone. They can use that service as long as that doctor, or that's wherever they're going, is in the CRA district. So, you know, when we say that we shouldn't do things like that for our residents, if we did nothing, I want you to think about that for a second. What if the city never did anything for its resident? You wouldn't be happy, and you would criticize it. You'd come here and say, you guys never do anything for the residents, or whatever you do is little. The city is actually trying to meet a certain expectations so that in the end, we can say with credibility that this is something that is going to benefit our residents. If you live in District 4, you can use the freebie. You live in District 3, 2, or 1, you can use it so long as you end up in the CRA district. There are a lot of people that are compromised by whatever the situation may be. Sometimes it's, just transportation. Some people are actually very immobile because they don't have family, they don't have friends that can take them to do something necessary to be able to take care of themselves. This is a service that is going to help more than it's going to harm. And just because you can drive a car and just because you have access, there's a lot of people in the city that don't have that. They don't have that. They just sit there. One of the residents was telling me that she had missed several doctor's appointments of a relatively, serious condition, but they just ignored until you get bad news because you haven't been coming to the doctor. And now this service helps out those people because it's not charging them, because your city, the city of Deerfield Beach, is trying to address something that wasn't there and try to show some heart for its resident. What's wrong with that? You want us to do nothing? Is that what it is? Is that where we come? Do nothing? Don't spend a penny? If that's what you want, it's selfish. It's selfish. And we look at it just one way. People going and they're eating, drinking, getting drunk, and then we jump in freebie and go home. That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. This city and this board look at ways that it can benefit every community. Because I'm going to tell you, there are needs in District 4 for the freebie. There are needs in District 3, 2, and 1. And like the mayor said, if it's not working, I will tell you right now, I'm sitting here, and for long as I'm sitting here, if it's not working and it's costing money and it's not benefiting, I will vote no. Get rid of it. Get rid of it if it's not helping. But I think that we ought to show some attitude of being communal to our neighbors, understanding there might be more than I'm seeing, and I'm going to take the time to investigate that. I think the freebie, thus far from what I've heard of people in my district, it has helped them. Go over to the Palms and ask the people who have used it how they like it. I've gotten calls unsolicited of how it has helped them to be mobile. Who wants to sit in an apartment all day? No, I got an appointment with the doctor and I can't get there, and I don't really want to bother anybody. There's another story to be told, believe me, more than what we just talked about. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Parnas.
I heard a comment that government shouldn't help business. If that were the case, we wouldn't have a lot of the airlines, a lot of farmers. There'd be houses where they used to grow food. The government has been helping business where it's necessary to survive, where it's necessary so the public gets served. It's been that way for a long time in the United States, and I hope that never changes. I hope that new startup businesses get a break so they can survive. I started a business, so I know what I'm talking about. I know how difficult it was. The requirements, government was in New York. And I bought a place that was closed for sound violations, and we opened a jazz club. It cost me a pretty penny to soundproof the place and have it inspected. But it was what was necessary. And guess what? The city helped us. Why not? We were a viable business, paying taxes, help us get off the ground, and it did. So did the local newspapers that gave us advertisement for nothing. Government does help business. Why? Because it's good for the neighborhood. I saw a film once by, at that time, Congressman Deutsch. And they asked people who lived in a rural community, a kid, what'd you have for dinner last night? And I'll remember the rest of my life what he said. It wasn't my turn to have dinner. I'm sorry, but we're one family, and we have to look out after each other, including the government. Hospitals get a great deal of money from the government. They don't ask you, well, we're not going to treat you unless you can pay for that. You got run over? Sorry. You can't come here because you don't have insurance. It's not how it works. We're all one family. And we all need help at one time or another. If you don't, you're lucky. But most people do. And I thank God that the government, whether it be the city or the state, county, or federal government, in some ways looks after all of us. And I hope that'll continue.
Thank you. Looking for a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion, Commissioner Parnas.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Preston. We have roll call, please.
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
We are now at the public comment portion of tonight's agenda. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. The time for public comment on an item that is on tonight's agenda is after the title is read into the record and the public comment period for that item is opened up. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted.
Thank you. Ms. Shelley, go ahead.
Good evening, thank you. Karen Shelley, 190 Durham D. First, I'd like to thank our city manager, Dave Santucci, and the many city employees that made the opening of the Johnny L. Tigner Center a tremendous success. The event embodied the definition of community, and it really felt more like a family reunion than a government ribbon cutting. So kudos to everybody who was involved in it. It was a welcoming, wonderful event. Also, I would like you all to provide an update on the search for a new city manager, and I'd like to strongly encourage the commission to delay the candidate interview process of that phase of that process until after the new commission is in place. With up to 60% of the body being replaced, it is critical that the incoming commission steer the process and the selection of our new city manager. And finally, I'd like to follow up on my previous question regarding the strategic plan. I'm curious how often it is reviewed by the city, and when will the next opportunity for public to take part in learning about that review take place? And thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you. Anyone online? Okay. Yes, sir.
Justin Phillips. My address is 402 Southeast 7th Ave. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My wife and I have been proud residents at Deerfield Beach for over 20 years, living in our current home for the past 11 years. Since the beginning of July, we've been dealing with a significant issue after the city installed a new water meter at our home. Just a few days after the install, a slab leak occurred under our house, causing extensive damage. And I want to note that in the 11 years that we've lived in our home, we've never had any major plumbing issues, not even a running toilet before this incident happened. We consulted multiple plumbers who all confirmed that the meter install likely contributed to this leak. Repair costs have already exceeded $15,000, and disruption to our home has been overwhelming. When I initially contacted the city about it, I spoke to a Charlo. He quickly stated that the city was not responsible and that it was the third-party installer, Vepo, who should be held accountable. Charlo assured me that all I had to do was call Vepo. They would send a technician to my home within 90 minutes. I ended up calling on 3 separate occasions, and despite being promised a call back, I never even received a return call, let alone a technician visit. The lack of response was incredibly frustrating, and it felt as though the responsibility was being passed around without anyone taking action. When my wife met with Josh, a city representative, he told her that a few other residents had filed complaints about the issues following their meter installs. He also said that he believed that there was a direct correlation between the install and our slab leak. Josh even handed a readout of our meter usage from the date of the installation. The statement and evidence he provided led us to believe that the city would take responsibility. However, we later met with Deputy City Manager Horace. Josh changed his stance. He no longer acknowledged the correlation, instead pointing to water usage data as evidence that the install didn't cause the leak. I do find it troubling that he had provided my wife with a copy of the same water usage data before, so it's unclear why he'd express his belief in the correlation only to change his mind later. This inconsistencies raised serious concerns for us about how our claim was handled. Moreover, the city's decision to deny our claims based solely on water usage data, no comprehensive investigation was conducted. Despite our repeated attempts to get VEPO involved, no inspection was ever performed. The lack of thorough investigation combined with Josh's contradictory statements leaves us feeling that our case was prematurely dismissed. And as the city was responsible for the meter install and plumbers we consulted confirmed the install likely contributed to the damage, we're requesting that the city reevaluate our claim. We've provided repair estimates and a clear timeline of events, and we believe this evidence supports our position. We've tried to resolve this amicably.
I'm gonna give you another minute.
Thank you, sir. Including having a meeting with the deputy city manager. However, if we cannot reach a fair resolution, we're going to have to consider other options. We certainly hope to resolve the matter in a way that's fair to all parties. And I want to thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What type of piping do you have? It wasn't PVC, it was older, right?
Well, we didn't crack under the slab because that was the way we were gonna find out, but that was gonna be too costly. So we
Yeah.
crack open our living room.
Ultimately, the repair was going just repiping, through the attic. So to get under the house, we did not go under that.
Even the pipe going from the meter to the house, what type of pipe?
I'm
Was it
imagining
galvanized?
it's original galvanized.
Galvanized. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I feel awful for the residents who live between Southeast 6th Avenue and Southeast 8th Avenue who have had to endure the drainage project from hell. How could a $2.8 million project get so screwed up? I am sure most of the answers could probably be found by looking at the contract between the city and Nucor Construction and the company's website. When looking at their website, there are multiple construction projects listed. However, there is not one single drainage project listed. Why would the city have chosen a company with no apparent drainage construction experience? Has Ramiro Gamez, Nucor Construction's president and managing member, been contacted about this project disaster? What does he have to say? The residents of the affected area came to the commission meeting on September 9th looking for some kind of assistance. Now we read in the Pelican newspaper that a meeting will be held to address residents' concerns on October 7th, which is 27 days later. So much for swift action. The Pelican also quotes the environmental services director blaming the contractor and saying the contractor has been given notice to improve conditions and is complying. If the contractor is complying, then why is the city about to hire Craig A. Smith for an additional $118,000 to serve as the city's engineer to oversee this project? Is Nucor going to pick up this added $118,000 expense to the taxpayers? Has the city attorney had a chance to advise everyone what penalties can the city impose on Nucor for breach of contract? And let's not forget about the trees and the mysterious disappearing foxtails. The same Pelican newspaper article quotes the city's environmental services director saying all the swale trees are being removed at the contractor's discretion. What she fails to answer is where are the foxtail trees being removed to? And could the city have been that naive to allow the contractor to do whatever he felt like with these expensive foxtail trees? I think the city's environmental services director has much to explain, and I hope she is forced to start explaining tonight in the name of transparency. Finally, what has our paid consultant, Mr. Orlando A. Rubio, been doing about this? The work authorization form to hire him is dated July 1st, 2024, and the contract signature page is dated August 21st, 2024. Why is this contract being presented for approval to the City Commission on October 1st, 2024? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brace?
Good evening. My name is Willie Rosetta Graham Bracy, 501 Northwest First Terrace, Deerfield Beach. I'm up here to talk about the drains. Last week, when it stormed so bad, the water was almost up to our knees over there. It flooded our yard, and they had to bring that night they had to bring barricades out there and block the road off. So we was like prisoners in our home. And then I went out there and looked at the drain. The water was up high over the drain, and I took pictures, and the tadpoles was all in the yard, just swimming around out there, little mineral tadpoles. And then I'm wondering why those boats can't go down 3rd Avenue and come up to the boat yard instead of coming down First Terrace, because First Terrace is so low, and when a boat come by there, it just pushes all the water up in the driveway. And then I have to pay somebody to come and clean the yard from all the debris that comes over there. And I just wonder, in a storm, a bad storm will be coming out, they say, in a couple of days too. And nobody haven't went out there and cleaned the drains yet. Because I watches to see do they come. And nobody haven't come out there to clean the drains. So in a few days, it's gonna do the same thing. And that's not fair for the people that live over there to have their yards, their road blocked off, and they can't get to their homes. And then too, up there on Hillsborough Boulevard by 101, it was just like a trash pile over there on those benches. When those guys sit on those benches, they just throw all the trash all over the ground. I passed by there one day. It was white over there with so much debris and thing they throw over there. I guess they be sitting there and they eat and they just throw it on the ground. And I'm really pleased that we got Braithwaite Senior Citizen Center there, because I go up there every day. I wouldn't normally go to a place like that, but I go up there every day. And my husband said he wasn't gonna go. He goes every day. And we meet a lot of people, and a lot of people joining it. And also the staff is so friendly. To me, I think they're real friendly to me, but they're really, really friendly up there, and it treats us so good up there. So it's a real nice place, and I'm glad they built it. I went to Braithwaite when I was a little girl, but this center is so beautiful up there.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone online? Okay, yes.
Dave March, 523 Southeast 12th Ave. Just have a question. What's going on with the lifeguard stands? And they were constructed, torn apart, constructed. Are they gonna get rid of the old ones? And I can just comment on the AMI install. I worked a couple years, ran engineering in a company doing gas, water, electric, AMI. That was the shoddiest install ever. Now, I don't know about their problems, but I reported this to the Deerfield Beach Water. They put the AMI system, they have to mount it on the meter, but they never raised the boxes. So all these covers are sitting on top and they're gonna get broken. You got the lawnmower, you got, somebody will walk right over it with stuff. That was reported, but I don't think anybody ever did anything with that. Over. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. That's my 3 minutes, right? My name is Dave Monks. I live at 829 Southeast 16th Court. I'm a new resident to Deerfield Beach. 80 years ago, my grandparents bought a house in the Cove on Southeast 9th Terrace, and I've always loved this place. We used to drive down from Michigan, and it was always exciting to see the bridge and the ocean just beyond it when we got here. And for the last 35 years, I've been living in California, 15 years in San Francisco and 20 in LA. And now I'm here, and I'm really happy to be here in Deerfield Beach. I bought a house in the Cove a few years ago. I was renting it. Now I get to move into it finally. I want to say, first of all, I think the city looks fantastic. I think it looks great. Deerfield Beach is still such a beautiful place to come back to. And you've kept sanity here. Sanity in planning, sanity in beauty. The beach is open and welcoming to people, and that's just awesome. And, you can see what the choices are. You could have sort of, Boca, which steroids, Pompano, increasing exclusivity. And here you've got Deerfield Beach. So I really am so happy to be here. And I wanted to say a couple of things. In San Francisco, and LA, I was involved in in a career in government politics and law. So we've had I went through a lot of battles over development, density, housing, historic preservation, and it's hard work. And at least you're not dealing with some of that stuff in those cities are a lot denser. So the battles are extremely pitched and expensive and go on for a long time. So good luck with yours. And I wanted to say also in California, if you
could just address us then.
Okay, all right. Well, no, the CRAs got wiped out in a court decision, and it's kind of an interesting case study. You may want to check that out. I do want to just address one item about the city manager position, which I think is going to be coming up when you elect new people, and I think up to 3 people could be changing here. But I do want to I think it's important that the new council or the commissioners find the new city manager. Again, I'm comparing to LA. We had a lot of little cities around LA where we had all kinds of shenanigans going on with city managers. Look up the city of Bell, for example. Special deals with the manager and then maybe people that are involved with the city. And I think that a fresh start with a new commission would be a good thing and fair to the newly elected people. So that's what I wanted to say, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online? No.
Lucia Del Genio, 707 North Shore Drive. I just want to leave that feeling like we have no hearts back here. And I love you, Preston. You said something very touching. And I think we all care about the suffering. And I myself take care of homeless, okay? We have to try to help as much as we can. People need medicine. They don't have money for it. They need food. They don't have money for it. So yes, and the rides are important. I think Ms. Link was probably, because we're friends, mentioning the fact that people who just go for drinking and eating, if they can afford drinking and eating, they should be able to afford their taxes. And that would bring more taxes also to our city. And businesses, there's a fine line on how much government can intrude on business and how much we also need them. I'm the one that always says we need businesses here, we need more revenue. So fine line on all of these subjects, and we seem to get upset at each other. And because we love you and we love the city and we love the residents, we don't have to fight. I think we think the same way. We just have to look at priorities. You always ask me, Mayor, that what do we cut? It's a group effort. I can tell you, cut on this. It depends on a good manager. It depends on a beautiful commission you are. You do a lot of good work. But we can all of us can use a little bit of improvement on how we believe the government should be and how residents should be. You mentioned the value of the homes going up and therefore the assessments, but we're not selling. Like I can't say today my house is worth 500, tomorrow is $1 million, but I'm not selling. So I'm not making money out of the value. So I don't want to pay the taxes on the value just because. Of course, it's good for the city that we have the value, but there's a fine line there too. You say $100 per person or $60 a year, but we look at 80,000 residents, and that's 80,000 times that, or whatever the homes are, 40,000 homes. That's 40,000 times $60. So the impact is on the numbers, not just the $60 a year. And the senior center, I'm sure those people cannot even afford coffee. So that's why we give them for free, hopefully. Thank you, Mr. Hertz. But even that is something that the $60 can help the seniors with, to buy coffee. But, I do appreciate what you do, but let's do even better. I'll help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close it to the public then. Can we get an update on what we're doing with the lifeguard towers, please?
Mayor, unfortunately, because we're still in turtle season, we're unable to demolish the ones that the older tower. So as soon as we get out of turtle season, we'll be able to get rid of those ones in short order and construct tower number 0 is what we're calling it, which is going to be the northernmost tower that we have not finished construction on.
Okay, hope that answers your question. Thank you. I would imagine it looks very different in the Cove from 80 years ago when your grandparents were here. The paved roads were kind of sparse back then, but excellent points and welcome. And thank you for your input on the things. Heck did I put my notes here? My apologies. I just want to make sure I answer everybody's questions that they had. As far as the drains being cleared, I hope staff reached out to you, Ms. Bracy, on that when that occurred. I know I spoke with the city manager. I received your call on that and spoke with him regarding it, and I hope that was addressed. David, do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, so following a large storm like that, we know our problem areas and we go around and monitor the drains. So I'm confident that drain was looked at, but these are exfiltration drains. So when they reach capacity, they reach capacity, and with the storm that we had was a significant, fast moving storm, and it dropped a lot of rain in a very, very short amount of time. And that's when you get those flash flooding conditions. So crews did come out immediately following the storm, started responding. We had law enforcement, we had fire rescue, out there managing a lot of accidents on the major roadways and blocking off some of the hazardous conditions while our crews were able to respond.
Okay. I just hope that knowing with the way these storms come in, that we're taking a proactive approach as we go about doing that. Ms. Shelley, we'll find out information for you for your strategic plan and let you know when the next update is on that. And I would hope you've had the ability to take a look at it and review it. The gentleman, I believe he left, regarding the plumbing issue. We will certainly look into that and find. I just heard about it today for the first time, so we can look into that and find out what that issue would be. Obviously, that construction project that we had that's going on. If you'll notice, there are no residents from that neighborhood here today. There's one person who doesn't live there who's outraged, but we're all outraged to be honest with you. But clearly, we're making some progress there. Otherwise, there'd be more residents here tonight, and there's zero from that area on it. But certainly, some of those things should be looked into, and I know that's what staff is doing on it. Dave, do you have an update on that for us?
Yes, Mayor. We are looking to improve the way in which we're managing that neighborhood in the project. It is going to be, to say that it's not going to be, a strain on that neighborhood would be insincere. It will be no matter what, but we can certainly do things better. And one of the things that we're looking to do is to provide more updates to the public on a regular basis. And so there's several residents who we've been working with and talking to, and I think that level of personal communication and update is helping. So we want to get out there on October 7th, have a community meeting, let them know what improvements we've made with the construction scheduling and the conditions out there. One of which is going to be that we're going to be removing some of the structures that will be part of the latter part of the project, because there's no reason for them to really be sitting there for any length of time. So we'll be removing those and bringing them over to Pioneer Park. We have very little staging area in the city for structures like that. So Pioneer Park seemed to be a close proximity and location for that. Additionally, we were unable to, the biggest hurdle that we had as of recently was 6th. And the problem with 6th Avenue was that we had significant amount of rain day after day after day. And the only time that we can start the actual paving of that road was after the middle school let out. So that gave us a very, very small window in order to get that paving done. But unfortunately, either it was raining or it was too wet for us to complete that. We got the opportunity, I believe, last week to get that done. And it was an inconvenience, to say the very least, to the residents, because they were not able to complete that paving until about midnight that night. But it really was, in my opinion, the lesser of two evils. We had to rip the Band-Aid off, get that paving on the ground, so we could get on and keep moving on the project. That was the biggest holdup. So we are listening to the residents and hearing some of their feedback. The issue with the foxtails, we've heard some rumors that what's going on the foxtails, where are they going? They're being ripped out of the ground. They're not being root pruned, and the only way that you can really effectively save a palm tree is by root pruning it so that it can be replanted, and that's not what's occurring. So there seems to be some misunderstanding, I think, about what's going on with these foxtails. They're being removed and discarded.
Thank you. I can tell you right now, and this is about the third time I've heard this from this individual, I'm not forcing any staff member to come here and answer anything, especially a female staff member. It's a very odd request, and it's the third time I've heard that. I don't think anybody up here is going to force someone to come up here and explain something, but that should make anybody shudder to think that that's a consideration. But I just don't get on board with that idea. Certainly want updates, but I'm not forcing anybody up here to do something. I think we've addressed everything. If I didn't, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, we are on the consent portion of tonight's agenda. Items 4 through 6 are currently on consent.
Is there any polls by commission? No. Anyone from the public care to speak on item 4, 5, or 6? One person? Okay. Anyone online? Okay. Let's open it to the public. Which item would you like to speak on? Number 4. Thank you.
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. Our city law firm wants a 67% pay increase for certain cases where they will be representing the city having to do with the new school zone speeding cameras and the new state homeless law, House Bill number 1365. Since Weiss Sirota is anticipating more cases, they want to get out in front and not have to wait for the data to come in to determine whether there will be an increase in cases. They would rather raise their rates 67% and then see whether they were right or wrong. The increase they are asking for is way beyond the rate of inflation, which is now just over 2% annually. Let's also keep in mind Weiss Sirota billed the city of Deerfield Beach almost $1 million for calendar year 2023. My favorite line from the face sheet was in the last paragraph. The author wrote that the taxpayers did not have to worry about this 67% legal fee increase because cost recovery is available from fines resulting from code enforcement prosecution and collection of funds resulting from the city liens. I guess the author must be referring to the $118 million receivable on the city's books listed under liens. We all know how easy that money has been to collect. I urge the commissioners to make Weiss Sirota wait for the data to come out first. And if they are proven to be correct with the increase in the number of new cases where they will be representing the city, then that would be the proper, appropriate time to ask for an increase, not ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'm going to close it to the public. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious, when was the last time we received an increase from this law firm?
Would you like me to answer that?
Sure.
And I'm happy to respond if it's okay with the commission.
Yes.
So the last time the fee was increased was in 2016, 8 years ago.
Years ago. Okay.
Mr. Hurst is correct. We are anticipating some additional services that could be needed based on that new law, as well as appeals from the speed zone cameras that you all approved. But prior to that, you've already have a significant increase in services, particularly on the municipal ordinance side. And what I mean by that is, you know, a couple of years ago, maybe we would get one municipal ordinance filing a month or one every other month. Just in the last 5 months, my office processed 45 municipal ordinance violations. And previously, maybe we'd have a hearing once every other month. We're attending hearings at least 2 per month. Unfortunately, the county court requires us to attend in person. We can't do Zoom hearings. Additionally, when we file municipal prosecutions, we have to file them in person as well. So we've always had code cases and code hearings with this, which this fee covers. And we have those about two a month. So it's really those additional services in combination with not having an increase from 2016. And I'll say one more thing. You know, we've talked a lot about, you know, the fines that are outstanding and out there, $118 million, and some of the challenges with collecting when you have homesteaded property. And while the city can't foreclose on a homesteaded property, if you got what's called a first money mortgage, you got a mortgage that you use to purchase your property, that mortgage company can. And so when I first started with the city in 2017, it came to my knowledge that we weren't really defending our liens in those mortgage foreclosure actions. Shortly thereafter, I think it was beginning in 2018, I spoke with the city. At that time, it was under the planning department about the potential for actually defending those code liens. And that department supported it at that time. The city manager supported it. I believe the commission supported it. And through that process, we have made considerable recoveries. Along with increased participation from the public safety department. I certainly don't want my office to take all the credit, but just to give you an example, last week we delivered them a check for $150,000. 2 weeks before that, it was $75,000. We have another $75,000 coming, and we're working on a high 6-figure one as we speak. So you do get significant cost recovery on these items. And again, it's a teamwork. It's a team effort along with the public safety department. Happy to answer any other questions you have on this one.
Thank you. Did that answer all your questions? Okay, thank you. Commission, items 4, 5, and 6, looking for a motion on each, or we pull out individually. Motion from Commissioner Parnas for approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 7 is a resolution, the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving option number blank for the Southeast 15th Avenue Bridge Replacement Design, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can walk us through this briefly. And if you have any technical questions, I have our Director of Environmental Services here. But really what we're looking at here is the options between two bridge options for 15th Ave. And to just walk us back to where we were, we had we had two surveys. We had a meeting with the public, and we've had plenty of public input through those surveys and in various either workshops or commission meetings about this particular bridge. Originally, we showed 3 options on this bridge, and it really kind of boiled down to 2 options where one, you can go to the next slide. 2 options where one showed a sidewalk on the, I believe that's going to be the west side, and a multi-use path on the, that'd be on the west side, and multi-use path on the east side. And then the other 2 options showed very similar design, but they were separated by a wall structure, if you will, for the sidewalk. This is the actual bridge in today's configuration. You can go to the next slide. But it just as a reminder, this bridge is functionally obsolete. It is deteriorating in condition as reported by FDOT. Typically, they want you to address these bridges in about a 6-year time frame, and we're looking to get ahead of that by bringing this to you today. Next slide. So the existing bridge is about 26 feet in length, and the width deck is about 23.3 feet. Speed limit is 25 miles per hour across this bridge. In terms of design schedule, this is about where we're at. You know, we're here in the September-October timeframe. We're getting ready for permitting, and we'll look at having a final bid set for whatever design is selected tonight by February of 2025, at which time, you know, we would at that point go out for procurement on this project. Next slide. So the probable construction cost estimate is about 2.3 million. Once we get further along in the design and based off the option that's chosen tonight, we would go ahead and know those costs a little bit better. Obviously, once we award a contract and bring that before you, we'll have a more concrete estimate of what that cost is. But the construction duration will likely be about, looks like about 15 months. So here's the existing bridge based on the 2 options that we put out to the neighborhood and the public for 2-week time frame. The survey was out. This is option number 1. This here shows that the vision between the pedestrian side and the bridge itself. It spans approximately 37 feet 8 inches, and the lane widths are about 10 feet. You can see that barrier, and that's a 6-foot sidewalk on the west side only. Next slide. Option number 2 removes that barrier wall. It reduces the total width of the bridge by about 5 feet. Next slide. Did again put that survey out with these 2 options. This is exactly what it looked like. Next slide. Some of the pros and cons on this bridge, you know, with option number 1, which shows that wall separation, it's wider shoulders for use by the cyclist. The wider, however, it does, you know, it violates the neighborhood residents, you know, stated preference, at least as those that were closest to that bridge. Does have a bigger impact. The sidewalk uses a crash barrier for pedestrians versus, and bicyclists versus vehicles, which is a pro. And the con, it's probably about 20% more in cost than option number two. The pro on option number two, which doesn't have that barrier, it's closer to the existing approach roadway, and it seems to be the residents' preference, and at least in terms of comments received. I will say that of the 519 participants in the survey that we had, option number two only won by 1 vote. Is extremely close, and never really seen much of that in certain terms of a survey response. It is unfortunately, the con is that it has a narrower shoulder width for the cyclists, and that the sidewalk protection is not there. The pro is that it's a least cost option. Next slide, please. So again, we talked about the responses and how close they were. Option number two beating out option number one by 1 vote. Next slide. That's it. Okay, good. So tried to just at least present to you, if you can go back to the pros and cons, it's probably something I think I would want the commission to be able to see as they have the discussion. You see what the two options look like, and the response from the residents. And of course, you may have had some further communication with the residents as well. But you asked us to go back and do this. We're glad that we did, and think it's very interesting feedback, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak.
One question I do have, one of the challenges with the current bridge is the guardrail. It's so close to the road itself that vehicles have actually struck it. Each of these two options, I don't see the artist rendering of the guardrail, where it would be, and how, if that's gonna, the change would mitigate that current challenge.
So you asked a technical question, so I'm going to
Sorry.
bring up the technical person.
I mean, it is an I-95 guardrail as opposed to a residential guardrail.
Yes, sir. We have a design solution to that. So what we're going to be doing is installing curb line. But what curb line introduces is that now I have to direct that drainage to drainage structures. A curb line, a 6-inch curb, reduces the clear zone enough where the guardrails go away. So by roadside design guidelines, if I can introduce a 6-inch curb, then the guardrails can go. But to do curb, you need drainage structures, because you can't just, you can't just allow, you have to channel all that water to catch basins. So it actually extends the limits of the project a little bit, because we have to extend the curb line to the point where we get to the nearest drainage structure and can install drainage at that location to connect to our existing system.
So good. So the guardrails go away on either option.
Yes, with a curb.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item?
Day March, 523 Southeast 12th Ave. I live right around the road from that. Walk through the bridge, bicycle over it. I would just go with the cheaper option. It's saving 20% to put a wall up. You're not supposed to be speeding in our neighborhood. If they do, they'll hit the speed bumps that we have everywhere. Except
there.
Except there.
Thank you. We know who the swing vote was now.
Hello, Maria Larico, 1551 Southeast 12th. So I live in the Cove, and I agree with the gentleman that just spoke. I ride my bike. My son boards. We're always up and down that street daily. It's an overkill. Save the money. I was going to say that because I'm conservative. But it's not necessary. I don't think that anyone is racing through there. It is a neighborhood, and it has a turnabout. Just if you're coming north, it's prior, and if you're going south, right, it's after. So that's slowing everybody down. And how much I hate speed bumps, so we're not going to talk about that. But it's not going to be an issue. Yeah, and it's a beautiful enhancement not to have the hideous guardrails. and they are an encumbrance to oncoming traffic that if it could really cause a great fatality. But in every stance, I think the people addressed it. You know, we don't have to go into somebody's land, which I'm sure you dealt with, right? They're not happy losing a portion of their property. So we want to take that into consideration too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What option do you prefer?
She said, option two. Option two. She might be the swing vote. You guys have to battle that.
Good evening, Gary Mogg, 654 Southeast 15th Avenue. My home's located in the southeast corner of the bridge. And I bought my home in December 1984. So this December, I'll be there 40 years. So I've observed a lot of movement across that bridge over the 40 years. 15th Avenue actually is a residential street. Some people like to think of it more like a thoroughfare going over to the beach and stuff like that, but it's become a very residential street. Traffic's minimal. Bicycles, pedestrians is quite minimal. And I've never, ever seen a situation during these 40 years, and I'm outside a lot, where any pedestrian or bicyclist has been in danger. We respect people when they're going across the bridge. We slow down. And by doing the smaller bridge, option two, we keep the bridge deck narrower, which that in itself keeps traffic running slower than that additional 5 or 6 feet. And then the other concern is, and this is just a sidebar, it was like in late 80s, early 90s, the family that lived in the northwest corner of the bridge, their 2 children used to go out in a little John boat up and down the waterway there fishing. And one day, the girl and the son, the brother, they were going under the bridge and there was someone fishing on the bridge. And as a result, they ended up getting a hook right by the side of their eye. In fact, I think it ended up going in their eye. So if we do a bigger bridge there, which would be the number 1 bridge by expanding it by 5 more feet, it probably might encourage people to want to fish off the top of the deck of the bridge. There's no fishing signs there, but our police force doesn't have time to come and police people fishing on the bridge every time we see someone fishing. I just personally ask them to be careful when they're casting and so on and so forth. So those are some sidebar type situations where if we went with the wider deck could create additional problems.
Okay.
And I think number 2 would be more than adequate for us. And it would provide that sidewalk for the people who want to traverse that 26 feet across the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Joel Barnes, 1628 Southeast 7th Street. I live about 6 houses east of Gary, which is on the southeast corner of the bridge. I've lived there since 2001 and raised 3 children from birth there, spent many hours on that bridge, and I'm an avid cyclist. You know, the bridge needs upgrading for sure. I've never felt in danger at any time with my children on that bridge. Being an avid cyclist, I see Gary every early morning on my road bike. I've never had an issue with traffic. So I don't think option 1 is necessary with the barrier. My kids also have electric skateboards, been over that bridge probably thousands of times. So again, I think there's definitely a need for an upgrade, but I prefer option 2 because it's, you know, it's not as wide, it's less of an impact as far as the footprint of the bridge as well. And the guardrails have definitely been an issue because, as Gary said, I don't know if he mentioned that. I know we mentioned it at a previous meeting. They stick out a little bit into the road. So some cars have unknowingly clipped them. So they need to go. That's been probably in the 20 years, that's been the biggest issue that I've seen. But as far as creating a space for cyclists and people that use, vehicles like electric skateboards, scooters. I have them all because of my kids. I think the bridge serves well now, and it will serve just as well in option 2 and even better, but I don't think we need option 1.
Thank you.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I'm also a vote for option number 2, but I did have just a quick question, a point of information. I know in the backup it said the Florida Department of Transportation conducted an inspection and a bridge comprehensive inventory report in April of this year and determined that the bridge was functionally obsolete. I've been around long enough to know that this is definitely not the first time that there was a report done that said that this bridge was functionally obsolete, but I don't have the wherewithal to find out how many years it goes back that this bridge has been considered functionally obsolete. So I was hoping maybe somebody from city staff would know when the bridge first became functionally obsolete. Thank you.
Thank you. Probably about 5 years after it was constructed. Knowing FDOT, and yeah, that's probably the case. Anyone else? Anyone? Yes, former representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. We have a public safety director. I think that's the correct terminology for that position, in Mr. Brimlow. Can we have some input from him as the safety, public safety person on this item?
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Slattery, go ahead. Mr. Slattery, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Couldn't figure out how to unmute. John Slattery, 1455 Southeast 5th Place. Also, my wife and I also prefer that option 2. No need for that barrier. We live about 6 houses down from the bridge, right there at the corner of 15th and 5th. So we'd agree with that. No need for the barrier. And then one more time, an appeal. When this construction is done, please do what you can do to not divert traffic down Northeast 5th Place, which becomes the shortcut when that bridge closes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I didn't use my full 3 minutes. Can I have a follow-up?
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, but I might ask you a question though, so stick around. Anyone else? Okay, sir, I do have a question for you. That's okay. It's Mr. Barnes, right? Yes. Mr. Barnes, what was the thing that you wanted to ask?
Thank you. The thing that I wanted to mention, I think it's worthy of note because you guys keep bringing up one option 2, 1-by-1 vote. I think it's curious to know who voted, because I don't think those 519 votes came from the cove around that bridge.
Thank you.
I just don't.
All right. Anyone else? That's it. I'm gonna close it to the public. I will say, this is an interesting lesson in government. It should tell you guys something. It tells me something for sure. First off, 5 out of the 7 people who came up here tonight live in that area in the Cove, or even spoke on this issue. 2 are not from the area. Universally, it's option number 2, but yet you see when you go out, everybody comes in here and they think, oh, well, that's the way it is, and how dare you not listen to the public? But when we put it out to vote, 1 vote out of 500 something votes, it tells you that just because you show up here doesn't mean you're in the majority in your opinion on things. But I will say this, that's why we put it out there like that. And whether it's 1 vote or not, I think, in my opinion, that 1 vote, and I didn't vote on it because I don't live in that area, but I get to vote on it tonight. I agree with it. I agree that we don't need to have the larger impact. It makes the most sense. It accomplishes what we want to accomplish, creating a better bridge over there. It gives the one thing I've always been uncomfortable with, no matter how people say there's not a lot of traffic, there's never been an issue. I don't want people with a stroller having to go out into the road in order to cross that bridge. We don't have that issue now. It is a low impact bridge, so you don't need that hard barrier that separates the roadway from the bicyclists and the people using that. You now have a very clear way. I have a strong feeling that if anybody's going to cross that, and it would have been an issue earlier, but if someone's going to cross that beam, now I don't think there's going to be a lot that's going to stop them. I think that there's an issue over there. So I agree with this, and I support option number 2. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you. That was going to be my comment as well. I'd like to make a motion for option 2.
Okay, Vice Mayor Drosky, I know you got your light on.
That's fine.
Thank you, Mayor. This was up on our agenda last September 9, and as you may recall, there was quite a few people here. And I asked that the matter be deferred because it was so close. There were 3 options at that point to be deferred to give an opportunity to get more impact and feedback from the residents on the issue. And nothing has changed that I heard from the last meeting. It was overwhelmingly for option 2. I did spend a lot of time in the Cove, especially yesterday. I didn't meet Mr. Mox or Mr. Barnes. Maybe it was just an issue of timing. But I did spend a lot of time out there, and interesting enough, not one resident said anything about cost. Nobody said anything about cost. I went this one versus the other one. It was all aesthetics and the footprint where this smaller, narrower bridge kind of fits what's there now in the neighborhood. And it was almost unanimous, not quite. So I am curious too where the other votes are potentially coming from. Maybe not the people in the immediate impact area, but the Cove is a large area. And so I couldn't canvass everything. So obviously my comments are unscientific, but I concur with the option number 2 based upon the feedback that I received.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Cantz.
Yes.
We're now at comments by administration and legal. No comments from legal tonight.
One is just a point of clarification for the commission, because you heard some things tonight that were inaccurate. Your code compliance contract expires at the end of this upcoming fiscal year, not in the middle of it, not in June. There was an amendment that was done at the 5-year mark during COVID, and we extended that for till the end of that fiscal year at that time. So your code compliance contract ends at the end of this upcoming fiscal year. The costs that were discussed with the commission in previous meetings was not about Calvin Giordano coming to us and saying this is how much the cost increase is going to be. This was based off analysis by staff looking at the cost of existing contracts and existing levels of service for the same amount of code enforcement officers that we have today. So those are expected costs. Those Calvin Giordano didn't come to us and say your cost is going to increase by 1.4 million. Those are what their current contractual costs are based off of a per code enforcement officer. So the reason why that's important is because the costs have not changed for this fiscal year, other than what was passed in the budget to bring the code compliance manager in-house and add 1 additional code enforcement officer. But the real decisions by the city commission will need to happen during this fiscal year to be implemented in the next one, in FY26. Additionally, I want to just give the commission an update. Many of you were made aware of the Highlands Gardens power outage that occurred on last Sunday. And we had, just like we did with the storms that provided us our flash flooding, we had a significant electrical storm on Sunday night. One of their transformers, those big boxes that you see on the ground, got hit by lightning, presumably caught on fire, and a building of 70 units in government subsidized housing was without power. We had a tremendous response from our fire rescue and law enforcement folks that evening, as well as the Red Cross. The next day, a miscommunication, quite frankly, from FP&L, who said, we'll have our part, we'll be done by tomorrow. Yes, they were, but that was just bringing a brand new line from the roadway back to that box. And there was about a week's worth of work to be done by an electrical contractor that the management team had to, or the management company at Highlands Gardens needed to contract with. But on that day, I want to thank my staff, myself, Horace McHugh, Rodney Brimlow, our emergency manager, Rusty, law enforcement, our fire chief, our police chief. We all went out there together to assess the situation, because I think we learned that we realized at that point that it was going to be a long haul situation. I also want to thank the management company of Highlands Gardens, because they actually put into place a very good plan to ensure that there was water, food, facilities for many of these elderly people. It is a 3-story building, and they did what they're supposed to do. And unlike some of the other government-funded elderly facilities that we have, and we've seen the response that they've had, this management company was fairly impressive in their response. But I'm very happy to report that as of about 10 minutes ago, they have restored power to Highlands Gardens. Our emergency manager, Rusty Severs, has just come back from the scene to make sure that the power was back on, and all things are well over there. And again, thanks to the Red Cross for their support through this. They were out on 2 separate occasions to provide food and water and resources to those individuals. That's all I have, Mayor.
We are now on City Commission business. Item number 8. Item number 8 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2 Administration, Article 2 Boards, Committees, Commissions to create Division 4 Charter Review Board, establishing the Charter Review Board membership, powers, and duties, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and an effective date. This is first reading. At a prior City Commission meeting, I believe it was Commissioner Hudak, raised the issue of reestablishing a Charter Review Board. At a subsequent commission meeting, the commission directed my office to prepare some legislation to provide for reestablishment of that board, address the requirements to be a board member, and the duties and responsibilities of the board member. So you have before you an ordinance for your consideration, and I've been working in consultation with Commissioner Hudak as well. The ordinance essentially creates the Charter Review Board, establishes the structure. It's proposed to have 5 regular members. Each elected official, including the mayor, would get 1 appointment to the board, and then the commission as a whole would appoint 2 alternates to serve on the board. The city manager's office and the city attorney would serve in advisory capacity to the board. The ordinance contemplates that appointments to the actual board will be made by resolution, with the first board establishment and appointment to occur after the March 2025 municipal election, and no later than March 31st, 2025, to address some of the comments that some of the commissioners raised previously. The board would convene and start the review process within 2 months of the appointment. Ultimately, the board is responsible for reviewing the charter, studying the charter, and making recommendations to the city commission about potential amendments, if any. Ultimately, those are just that, recommendations. It would be an advisory capacity. It would be up to the city commission to choose which of, if any, of the proposed recommended changes would be actually put on the ballot for a decision by the electors. And then the term of the board members is about a year. It may not take that long. It could take a little longer, in which case we have an extension possibility. It would sunset when that board's complete. And then the way it's currently written is that it would be up to the commission thereafter to determine at some later date when the board could be reestablished. I know Commissioner Hudak may want to speak about the frequency of the board. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hudak and Commissioner Preston.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification. The latter date, I believe, is May of 2025, not March. And maybe I misheard you, but
yeah.
So the commission will have 2 months to make a decision after the election.
That's correct, Commissioner. Right. After the March 2025 election, but no later than May 31st,
May
2020.
31st. Thank you. And I'd also like to propose that we put in that it's established every 10 years. So I'd like the commission to consider that as well. Again, we don't know what the commission's going to be like 10 years from now, but I think it's important that we have something in place so that it doesn't take another 16, 17 years in order for this to be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. Initially, when I was thinking about this process, which I think my colleague bringing this up was a good idea. However, how do we get people to be a part of that committee? What is the fairest way to do that? And I began thinking of how that process could take place because, you know, with the commission being involved, I initially said here that it becomes political. But then with that point of view, you know, every committee can be political. And so, you know, it's the process that we have here is to appoint. I went over and over of how you can do it without it being political, and I wasn't able to come up with anything that looking at such a proposal, you could say, well, this way is a little bit more fair. Every board, every committee, a commissioner has a primary and an alternate. And I think that that's probably the better way to go about it if we're going to have it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Drosky, then Commissioner Parnas.
Vice Mayor, or excuse me, Commissioner Preston, were you peeking at my notes again?
Again?
Because that was my comment too, with respect to the composition of the board. I thought that in fairness that each commissioner and the mayor should have one appointee and then one appointee as the alternate as well in case that initial regular member cannot serve. That's the way we do it on all of our other committees. I don't see why this should be any different because I don't want to get into the point you said of making it political, because if my regular member doesn't attend and one of the two alternates is put in his or her place, then I don't want someone to cry foul. So I think one regular member and one alternate member per commissioner is fine. I mean, I'm open to listening more. Commissioner Hudak on the 10 years. I mean, I don't know that it's necessary. We put it down in writing. The commission can review the charter anytime at once. We don't have to wait 10 years to do that. So to have a requirement to do so when we can do it at any time, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other tonight, but I'm open to suggestion, but I am more firm on the one regular and one alternate member per elected.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes, I agree with Vice Mayor. And let's understand something. This Charter Review Committee has no power. If they want everybody in this chamber to wear purple hats, it would have to go in front of the voters. You can't change the charter because we want to. Last year or 2 years ago, I proposed a change in the charter allowing for a third term. It went in front of the voters turned it down. So no matter what the Charter Review Committee suggests, it's still up to the voters, the citizens of Deerfield, not the commission. And there's no politics involved in it. Why? Because it has to go out to all the voters in the city. And they make the decision, as it should be done, if you're going to change the city charter. So I agree that we should have a committee member and an alternate appointed by each commissioner. Period. Done. Qualifications, I think that's up to the commissioners to have somebody that understands the charter, has some kind of background in it, government, so they understand what it's about. Other than that, I love common sense. And if we have 5 members and 5 alternates, You got enough of a group to get a fair opinion on any item. And then it goes in front of the voters if it passes that muster. So I agree. We should have each commissioner and the mayor has a vote or appointing one permanent and one alternate. And I would support that 100%.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak again?
Thank you. I have no issues with making it, one regular member and one alternate member. Anthony and I went back and forth on that, so I'm completely open to that. I do feel strongly, though, that we should have a specific time frame. Yes, the commission can review it at any time, but we don't know what future commissions are going to be like, and I still think it's our duty to put something in there that allows for the residents to have that opportunity to review the charter. And that's why I really think we should have it every 10 years. If you have it every 10 years, you know that a commissioner will only get one shot at it at the most, because the most we can serve is 8 years. And that's why I'm leaning towards 10 years.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
I have no problem with that. I think that the vice mayor makes a good point that the commission can review at any time. But I think my colleague, Commissioner Hudak, by putting it down, it forces the commission to have to look at that. Other than that, it may pass you by. And you may not want it to get to 16 years or 15 years, whatever it is. But if you got it down, it makes you start thinking, okay, in 10 years, we need to think about whether we should think about getting a committee together, whatever. It allows some measure of dialogue. And so I think that's probably a good thing, and I would support that.
Thank you. I'm going to open it to the public, and I'll save my comments till the end. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item?
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I'm going to assume that if you all vote no for this, then this charter review idea stops and is dead in its tracks. So if I'm wrong, please enlighten me. It's extremely rare that I agree with something that the District 4 Commissioner says. But he was right on point when this was first brought up, and I want to quote him word for word so that I don't misconstrue anything that he said. He said, "I have a sinking suspicion this may have something to do with removing the height restrictions here in the city, because why else would you want to review the charter?" I could not agree more with the District 4 Commissioner, and I urge you all, or would like you all, let's put it that way, to vote no for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Ms. Shelley?
Karen Shelley, 190 Durham D. I think this is a great idea. I do support the addition of adding the 10-year review for a number of reasons. I think people know so little about government and they feel so disconnected to government. I've talked to people about the charter review and they don't even know what it is. And I think it's a way to keep government in the eyes of the public. It's a way for the public to become involved in government without jumping into a commission seat or taking a big bite, and really shaping the government that we want to have. So I do agree with that. And I want to thank you for putting the work into this.
Thank you. Oh, you okay?
Don't worry, I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm still here.
We are a self-insured city, maybe. Get
Thank you.
nervous.
Thank you.
Glad you're okay.
Next trick.
That's my next trick. Thank you. Daniel Shinetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, 33442. I'm in favor of this, the charter review, and I think it's a great idea every 10 years. Every 10 years, we have the census. And look, we're having our 100th year anniversary in 2025. Look, every single decade, Deerfield Beach has changed. Our population is growing and growing, and we don't know what's around the corner. So I think this is an excellent idea because I think government, in my opinion, should always be flexible to look at any crisis or any way we can improve. So I'm definitely in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, former representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. I'm in agreement with having this charter review committee and understanding that those persons who are appointed to the charter review committee or board or whatever you want to call it, they have to be instructed on the charter. Not everybody understands the charter. So there has to be a instruction of those persons who are serving on this board so that they understand what they are supposed to be doing and what they are supposed to be looking for. And I'm hoping that once this board is established, if this passes, that residents will be speaking with those persons who are put on this board so that they get the input from the residents about what it is that they want to see changed in the charter or added to the charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close it to the public. City Attorney, when was the last time we did a charter review?
It's my understanding it was 2006.
2006. So to give you a little bit more history on that, 1979, the city had a charter review when they took a look at things. 1986 rolled around and they did it again. At the time, it was Mayor Robb, Joe Trachtenberg and that group, and they wanted to have more input on what the city manager was doing. They didn't want to go to a strong form of government, but they wanted to make some changes. I think they were upset at the time because an assistant city manager was hired without them knowing. All of those changes, I believe at the time that they were pushing for, didn't go through. This is where it starts to get political. Amazingly, 2 years later in 1988, Mayor Robb pushed to have another charter review to do it. This is why I say it gets political. They wanted to do that because they wanted to go from 4/5 vote to a 3/5 vote to fire the city manager. So they were trying to get rid of the city managers. They didn't have the votes to do it. They wanted to do a charter amendment change in order so they could get political and fire their city manager with less votes than they were required to have. That failed. That didn't go through. Fast forward when we did it in 2006, which was right about the time I started coming to commission meetings. And I remember listening to what was going on there at the time. One of the things they talked about was obviously the referendum that is on the beach area. That was one of the protected things that we had in the beach area that we had. And that was discussed and put into place. They also discussed term limits. There were some changes to the terms that were happening. And basically what they did is they made sure that the changes that were made would allow former Mayor Cappellini and District 4 Commissioner at the time, Steve Gonot, to make sure they could, they didn't want to term limit Al Cappellini. They wanted them to be able to have the ability to run head to head. That was when that first started with these changes in the terms and staggering terms. They didn't have that before. Interestingly enough, the person who was in the chair of the Charter Review Committee in 2006 was Gene Robb. One of the things they voted on was moving our elections from March to November. Gene Robb recommended as the chair board not to do that. Wasn't this commission like people say, and they didn't want to do it. This was decided by a charter review committee because that's what you have to do to move the election. And they said, no, don't do it. So, keeping the staggered elections to make sure one elected official at the time, or doing the staggered elections to make sure one person that they were in favor of for, to make sure they still had the opportunity to run for another term. That was where politics came into play, trying to get enough votes to be able to change, how do you get rid of a city manager? That's again, politics that were played. It's a long time in between, but when you start seeing it happen every couple of years, there's, something nefarious going on. A lot of this has to do with the referendum on the beach. I have a voice recording right here that Gene Robb calling a gentleman who lived in the Cove saying, call Commissioner Preston. I can play it for you if you'd like. And then Commissioner Rosenzweig, because Gans and Miller will not vote to go to referendum to change the referendum on the beach. We want them to change it. See if you can get Rosenzweig and Preston to go along with it. Violation of the Sunshine Law, using, prosecutors didn't want to see it that way. They let it go because it didn't happen, so they let it go. But that happened. I have the voice recording. Happy to play it for you guys. That's where some of this stuff gets a little screwy. We didn't do it. I don't mind putting every 10 years to do this. I think that's okay. But I also don't want to make it mandatory. I don't want to make it mandatory. I'm not sure what the answer is to stop it from being political. People are always going to try to play it political. And I don't believe that's necessarily the case, but I do know if this goes forward, there's probably a couple hot button items that people want to look at. But I don't think making it mandatory every 10 years is the right thing to do. I'm not so sure that's the right thing to do. But other than that, the qualifications, how the board's made up, I'll go with whatever the majority is. I'm fine with it. It's okay with me. Commissioner Hudak, your light's on. Did you want to make a motion?
Sure. As far as the 10-year option, can we put it at some kind of a consideration every 10 years or something that at least puts it in the mind of the commission to take a look at?
Just brainstorming here, like, rather than making it a requirement, maybe you have it on an agenda for consideration.
Yeah, something.
Is that
something that
every 10 years? And
at
the
least it's
commission could
being
vote it up or
considered.
down?
If that's something that we could do, that I'll make the motion.
I can write that language in.
Okay,
And I'll second it.
thank you.
Okay,
So the motion would be each commissioner gets one primary person and one backup. And then it's recommended every 10 years to review, to put it on an agenda.
Okay,
to-
so it's a motion to approve with two amendments. One, each elected official, including the mayor, gets one regular appointee and one alternate appointee.
Correct.
And two, we'll do the first charter review. They'll be appointed by Rezo by May 30th of 2025.
Correct.
And every 10 years thereafter, there'll be an item placed on the city commission meeting agenda for the commission to consider whether or not to reappoint a charter review board.
I think that's perfect.
Okay, and the second, Commissioner Preston, does that sound good? Okay
Yes,
to you?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Drosky.
I just want to confirm that this is going to require a second reading because it's kind of, we're doing some things on the fly here. So I just want to understand that we're going to get a second bite of this apple at another meeting.
That's correct, Commissioner. This is first reading tonight. I would bring those amendments back to you, and because of the short time frame between now and the October 1st meeting, it would likely be after that meeting. It would be the subsequent meeting in October. I think it's the 15th, right? October 15th meeting.
That sounds reasonable.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. We do roll call.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
No.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Here we are now at item number 9, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, ratifying the appointment of Horace McHugh as interim city manager effective October 4th, 2024, approving and authorizing execution of an employment agreement with Mr. McHugh for service as interim city manager, and providing for an effective date. Per the commission's prior direction, you all made the decision to appoint Mr. McHugh. I've negotiated a proposed employment agreement with him to serve as your interim city manager. The structure of the agreement is very similar to the one that Mr. Santucci entered into when he was the interim city manager. In terms of consideration, I think the three primary points are that it provides for an approximately 10% increase over his current salary as deputy for serving as both the interim city manager and deputy city manager at the same time, an increased auto allowance to $600 a month consistent with the current city manager's auto allowance. And then in the event that Mr. McHugh is not selected for the permanent city manager position, it allows him to go back to his deputy role without any negative impact on his benefits that he would otherwise be entitled to had he not served in the interim city manager role. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? No. Thank you. Open this up to the public. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item? Anyone online? We close it to the public.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
We are now at comments by mayor and city commissioners.
Can I say something?
Well, it's your turn. We'll start with District 2. Go for it.
Fine.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect timing. Anybody that went over to the Johnny Tigner Center, you saw what a beautiful time it was over there. The city is actually moving ahead in a lot of ways, but that doesn't happen by itself. You have to have good leadership. You have to also have a staff that's willing to work for the people, because it's not only a monetary investment. You're talking about enthusiasm, inspiration to just do your job and to do it above level. And I've been talking with Mr. McHugh on a couple of issues, and we actually had a meeting today. The person that we were supposed to have the meeting with he and our safety officer, Mr. Bremlow, he didn't show up. But I had another meeting with Mr. Bremlow and the interim city manager about, and this is one of the things I wanted to mention, that we talked about Narcan boxes that would be placed throughout the city through the Hanley Foundation. And so I'm very proud of a lot of things that in the direction in which the city is going. I like, the communication that I've been getting. I'd like to also thank Mr. Santucci for what he has been doing with staff and getting some projects done. This basically is his last city commission meeting. He got one more? Well, I want to make a motion because Mr. McHugh has been thoroughly versed in what the city needs, and that we actually give Mr. Santucci the ability to go and get something. I'm sure he's inundated with a lot of things, and he's with us until just a few days from now. We got we'll be into October. So I'd like to make a motion that we just let Mr. McHugh just take over and allow him to get some things straightened out, with moving and things that he needs to do. He's done. He served the city, and I don't think it would be a bad idea to, allow him to be able to do that. So I'd like to make a motion that we let him go. I don't know if that sounds right. Probably doesn't sound so good. But I think that, to allow him to go and to get things in order. He served the city. I don't think that by having him here as city manager and Mr. McHugh, you're not going to get anything anymore out of him that he can help us with. And I would just like to ask my colleagues to give him the ability to go and get some things in order as he makes this transition to his new job. So I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second.
Let me just, I know you all probably want to discuss this, but I just wanted to point a couple things out. And I'm sure the city manager may have some comment on it as well. I don't think you mean to terminate the city manager. But
No,
there is, I didn't think so. So I wanted to clarify that for the record, because there's a specific process for that. And if you terminate him without cause, there's also implications under his contract with respect to severance. So I wanted to clarify that's not what you're asking
No,
for.
that's not what I'm asking.
You're just asking, I guess, if the city manager is willing to essentially leave early or resign at some earlier date. Is
That's
that correct? And then the appointment of Mr. McHugh would start effective at an earlier date?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think the city manager probably has some input on that, but I would want it to be clear for the record that you are not terminating. And the city manager also likewise has a 60-day notice requirement in his contract, which is how we got to, I think, the October 3rd date as the last date. So if the commission is going to go in this direction, we'll need to hear from the city manager about whether he's agreeable to that. And I may have some further comment before you all vote.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying I'm contractually obligated to have my last official day of employment with the city to be October 3rd. Fully intend to do that at the commission's will. I certainly work at the pleasure of the commission. So if you made the decision to end the employment agreement today, I could do that. I will just warn you that I think there are some things that will be occurring this week that I should be a part of. Work-related obligations that I'd be happy to talk to you further about. So I would not make that recommendation to do that effective immediately. I think the rest of this week is important. Of course, I will also say that next week we have a city commission meeting on the 1st. There are, obviously some business related items, but nothing insurmountable that I don't think Mr. Horace McHugh couldn't handle, but that's another milestone date, if you will. But of course, the 3rd is the contractual date. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure the commission understands I've no problem meeting that contractual obligation of having my last day of employment, official employment, be the 3rd. I will say that I am contemplating using the 3rd as a vacation day. It is a holiday, probably the last full day I'll have with my kids. So most likely just do that. But from a contractual standpoint and using, whatever time I have, I will, happy to do whatever the commission wants. But I wanted to preface that with you all.
If I understood you right, you said there's some business that this upcoming week. So are you saying that after that's over, you would be amenable to leaving?
I'm not going to chain myself to the desk, Commissioner, but I'm happy to do whatever the commission is whatever you all think is, right. So whatever you agree to.
Okay.
Commissioner Hudak?
I would be amenable to the city manager working for the rest of the week and then taking the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd as vacation days to end his employment. I don't see that the 72 hours of that final week is going to be a make or break thing. I personally.
Okay. Vice Mayor Drosky?
I mean, we heard from the city manager. I think he was kind of short arming it a little bit from I could tell from the tone. I mean, there's a procedure to these meetings. We just don't show up to a meeting. There's a lot of behind the scenes planning, and there is one more commission meeting that the city manager was planning on attending. So I don't see the reason why to short circuit that now. if there's additional city business and additional city commission meeting that they've been working on behind the scenes to plan for, I don't think it's our role to short circuit that without any reason or cause. And I haven't heard why to do that, other than to give Mr. McHugh a jump start on something that he's known for the last 60 days is coming. So I really don't see the need to change that contractually when we've all known what the rules are and now we're kind of moving the goalposts at the last minute. I don't see the reason or the logic behind it.
Commissioner Preston?
I'm not moving the goalposts, and the logic is that anytime any of us make a move or to do anything, it's a lot of logistics involved with that. There is nothing anymore that he can provide. Everything about the meeting that's coming up, as you said, things are behind the scene. Mr. McHugh is thoroughly versed in those things and would be responding. Mr. Santucci offers nothing. It's not like a regular meeting. It would be just keeping him. The logic is to allow him to adjust in a transition that we know that he's going through. And it's not going to hurt. He's going to stay to the end of the week. Like my colleague said, an additional 72 hours, it's not going to make any difference. It's not.
The end of this week or next week?
The end of this week. The end of this week. So.
Well, here's my thoughts on it. I'm disappointed that this comes up at the end of the meeting as opposed to let's put it on the agenda so we're all prepared for this. I'm completely blindsided by this. I have plenty of things with Mr. Santucci that I need to finish up and make sure that are in line before he leaves. And by Friday, I will not have enough time to make sure all that is done. There are a lot of things that we talk about, things that we have to be prepared for. I am not convinced that Mr. McHugh is ready for that just yet. That might change by the end of Friday, but I can't make that decision tonight. We've got to take a position that we're fighting with the county on when it comes to Mount Trashmore. And that is something that's constantly being moved on us. There are a lot of loose things that need to be, tied up before he leaves. And I don't think I am right now. I couldn't tell you if I'm able to accomplish that with Mr. McHugh with David leaving by the end of Friday. So I'm just not comfortable with that. I think, given a little more notice, I could have made a decision, but I would be a hard no on this right now.
I can speak.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
When we do government like we're doing it here, this is not being blindsided or any of those things. We can't call each other and say, hey, I got an idea. That's violating the Sunshine Law. This form of government is put into place. So sometimes we have to think like as something is unfolding. We don't always have the luxury to put something on the agenda. And the way things are structured politically, sometimes it is on the fly. We should have the ability to think things through. And there's no reason that we can't make decisions. We don't always have every bit of information, and nor is it that everything is always in a comfort zone for us. Sometimes we have to make decisions. That's just it. I thought about this. I can't call you, Mayor. I can't call anybody and say, you know what? Hey, I got an idea about this or that, because you just can't do it. It doesn't allow you without going to jail. So I don't think that this is I just think that we're intelligent enough to think this thing through and make a decision. It's not going to always be something that we're always comfortable with. We have every bit of information. I will say that whatever Mr. McHugh has been briefed on, or if he's not able to be able to address some of the things that Mr. Santucci would address, I think that that's an issue in and of itself. We're so close to that deadline that Mr. McHugh should be thoroughly versed in everything. And if he's not, fine, that's okay. But I don't believe that to be the case. And so, I just think that the gesture would be good. If the commission don't want to do it, it's fine. But let me say, this form of government sometimes dictate that things may come up. if we had an issue that was in a particular neighborhood that we had to vote on right now, we will do it. We're not going to say, you know what, let's wait a couple of weeks when we have the next commission meeting, we can get this or that. Sometimes it dictates that that we have to sometime vote on issues that are present. And so.
Well, I agree with that. And yeah, certainly that's the case. And I wasn't asking you to violate sunshine law, but you have the ability to contact the city manager and the city attorney and say, please put this on the agenda as a discussion item or an action item to do that. You have the ability to do that. We all have the ability to do that. A lot of times we don't like when that happens because we like to have a lot more notice. But, you know, this isn't something that just magically came up. It might have been something you magically thought of, but it's not something that just magically came up. We've known he's been leaving. We know when his end date was. If you decided along the way, okay, you know, I'm giving it some thought. I think if we let him go a couple days, it's not going to be that big a deal. That's fine, but it could have been added to the agenda. What I'm telling you right now is based on the information that I have, yes, I'm intelligent enough to make a decision. My decision's no. The reason why is because I wasn't given enough time to think about it. So no problem. My decision's no. Simple as that. But you don't have my vote on that one. Commissioner Parnas and then Commissioner Hudak.
Yeah, David, first, let me say thank you for the over 7 years you've helped me become a commissioner. How to look up stuff, how to get to the bottom of an issue. You need to leave a few days early. I think we owe it to you. For the times you worked through emergencies, through hurricanes, through other emergencies, and worked day and night. I remember getting angry because she didn't call me to come to the command center because of my age when we had the last hurricane. And you took charge and you got it done. I don't think this is such a tragedy that we have to go 100% by the letter of the contract, the letter of the law. My God, if McHugh is going to be taking over this city for months, a few days shouldn't make a difference. He shouldn't have to climb a tree and say, oh my God, Dave left 3 days early. I don't know what to do. Because if that's the case, we made a bad choice. I don't think that's the case. Would it have been nicer? Maybe he didn't have the opportunity to be nicer. Maybe his new employer in Tennessee said, I need you now. And so what is he asking? For a few days out of his contract early. And I vote to give it to him. I think he's earned it with the 7 years he's put in and the abuse he's taken from a lot of people, good or bad. We're in better shape as a city because of David Santucci than we would have been with somebody else. My vote is David, good luck. Take care of your family. Stay in touch.
I'm sure that we're all wondering what the good abuse was, good or bad, but the abuse you've taken, I know you haven't requested this, Deb. Is that accurately? This come up from Commissioner Preston. Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you. First and foremost, if the mayor still has items that are open that he doesn't feel comfortable that he can get done by Friday, then I could not support this because Dave still has a job to do. I have no issues with putting this agenda item on October 1st, to have October 1st be his last day. We can vote on it at that time. That gives the mayor and the other commissioners time to speak with David. And if October 1st, we've got everything wrapped up, then maybe we'll have a 3-vote yes at that commission meeting and gives him a couple of days with his family before he moves off to Tennessee.
Okay. Since it's a motion item, we would have to, yes.
Can I just want to point out the last item that you all approved was the interim city manager's contract with an effective date of October 4th, 2024. So I don't know if you want to reconsider that item, but something else to consider, you already have the concept of an acting city manager in your charter. When the existing city manager is unavailable, out of town, medical emergency as well. So that's something else for you all to consider for those few days where you wouldn't necessarily have to move the interim city manager date up.
We can discuss that October 1st, I presume.
You could do that as well. Just want to make sure I know what I'm putting on the agenda for October 1. If you guys could just give me some direction on that, that would be great.
I think we have a motion in a second. Is that I understand that we have a motion by Commissioner Preston. If we're going to take action, it needs to be open to the public, correct?
Yes. Can I understand what the current motion is?
I thought we have, maybe we don't.
Yeah, I made a motion
Okay.
and it was second.
What was the motion?
The motion was to allow the city manager to, basically, this would be his last, city commission meeting.
When would his last day be?
At the end of the week. He said that at the end of the week.
Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before you all vote, I just want to make sure because there are legal contractual implications here. So, Mr. City Manager, are you amenable to the last day of your employment being the end of the week?
That I would be okay with the last day of my employment being the end of this week. That would be okay. Again, I gave other milestones or none at all. So
So we have a motion and we had a second from Commissioner Parnas.
Correct.
Okay. I'll open it to the public. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item?
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I think the city manager is being extremely humble here. Common sense would dictate that he has a million things to do. And if he could leave and take care of those things earlier than what he thought, I'm sure that would be a big plus to him. And I understand why he doesn't want to say that publicly, but common sense would dictate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
Joe Cummings, 267 Oak Ridge P. You know, I remember when I first moved to Deerfield Beach, and one of the first things I saw in the paper was that the Miami Herald was downgrading Deerfield's credit rating from whatever it was at the time. This is a city manager that has saw, you know, 10 years of city budgets, and they've been very conservative. And recently, the credit rating's been upgraded to AA+, and the Standard & Poor's global long-term rating has been increased to AA. You guys have hired some really good employees. The man's leaving next week. Both employees, they got it. I know that you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart because of the love that you have for the man. But you know what? Our employees have this. Just let it go. We don't need the encumbrances. Let the week run out, and we'll take care of things next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? No, I'm going to close it to the public. So we have a motion and a second. Let's do roll call.
Commissioner Hudak,
No.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
No.
Mayor Gans.
No.
Being that we were still on District 2, I'll try not to be as controversial with my other statement. During the ribbon cutting for the Johnny Tigner Center, my wife found a ring. And if anybody's looking for that ring, please call City Hall, or you can call me 954-728-5886. 954-728-5886. And if the ring belongs to you, then you can have it. I didn't tell you what it looks like because you're gonna have to tell me what it looks like.
It's round. It's round. It's mine. It's round.
And also, I just want to thank staff once again, for the wonderful job that they did. It is not just one person, but there were multiple people involved from every layer of our city that provided something very good for this city. It ought to be our aim to always put on projects like this and invite the public to come out and be part of it. But you got a brand new center over there, and I'm convinced it's going to, have a lot of positive projects coming out of it to be able to help our city. So thank you, staff. Thank you for all that you're doing. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. That's it for me.
Thank you, sir. Let's go District 3.
Is there anybody here that has not checked their voter registration yet? I have the forms here. You can fill them out and still mail them. You can still get an absentee ballot if you want one. But for whatever you do, check your registration and make sure you vote. It's the most important right under the Constitution. You don't want to give it up. You don't want anybody to tell you you can't. Because you can, and your vote counts. So if anybody needs a form, I have them here. That's all I have.
Thank you. Let's go District 1.
Wow. Psych is right. A couple of quick things. Earlier people were saying how the city doesn't have a vision, how we should not be giving to businesses, how we shouldn't be giving back to the residents who need it. And I'm proud that we do that. Belsos Academy is in Deerfield Beach. That provides free Montessori daycare to up to 40 children. No other city has that. That's something that we do here in Deerfield Beach. The Braithwaite Academy, the Center for Active Aging and Memory Care, and we're in partnership with North Broward. That's a tremendous benefit that this city does for our residents. Freebie is a benefit that this city does for our residents. The Sawgrass to Seagrass Center at Sullivan Park. Today I'll hear people saying, oh, well, it's going to cost $10 million and this, that, and the other thing. And in 2 years when it opens, they're at the front of the line just cheering it on and how great it looks. These are things that we do for our residents, for our city, for our community that other cities do not do. So I'm hopeful and I'm proud of these things, whether our residents appreciate it or not. I'm proud of the things that this diocese has been able to do and to provide to our city for years to come. The Sawgrass for Seagrass Center is going to cost $8 million. And what did our director, our CRA director do? She was able to find $3.36 million grant to pay for 40% of that. That's a great accomplishment. I don't know if Chris Morey's here. I don't see her. She's probably on the line. But thank you, Chris Morey. That's a tremendous thing. Those are things that this city does, that this staff does for our residents. So our residents don't have to pay the $8 million. They're only going to pay $5 million. And I just want to make sure that individuals understand what this city and what this staff does, because costs go up. They go up every year. You see it in Publix. You see it at the gas station. The city sees it as well. And we do everything we can to be as cost effective as we can. As you saw earlier today, we did not raise the millage rate, but our costs have gone up. So we have to find ways to make sure that we balance the budget. We don't increase our prices in order to increase our bottom line. That's not how government works. So I'm just hopeful that people appreciate the things that the individuals on the dais do. The residents appreciate what our city staff does and how dedicated they are. Like we talked about earlier with Dave, Dave did not ask to leave early. He understands what his obligation was. And I could tell you that if, you know, the mayor felt comfortable that he could get everything wrapped up, I would have voted yes for that. But Dave's first job, his first obligation is to this city, and he understands that. You know, he's going to be leaving his family for a while. They're staying here. He's going off to his new job. So it is important that he spends as much time with them as he can now. So we'll have a resolution next week. Hopefully we'll get that done so at least he can spend a couple days with them. But I'm so tired of people coming up and being short-sighted and just worrying about the dollar. Oh, there's a hidden agenda because there's charter review. Thank you very much. That's coming from a developer who 8 years ago when he ran against me, has his big hotel that he wants to blow everything up so that he can increase his profits. Let's be realistic. The charter review is for the residents. The residents are making those decisions, not the commission. And then it's going to a vote, not the commission. The commission isn't here to change it. Gene Robb is not sitting here. Okay. Previous individuals who were sitting on the dais are not here. The individuals that are up here are upstanding citizens, upstanding elected officials who are doing everything that we can to better this city. And I want to make sure that I put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess District 4 now. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry I missed the Tigner grand opening on Saturday morning. I hear that it was a great event, but I was attending a Florida League of Cities conference as your representative to that organization. And I wanted to report to my colleagues that we had a very good roundtable session with the in-house lobbyist for the Florida League of Cities, because the 2025 legislative session begins in January this year. So legislative committees are going to start meeting next month in preparation. And so it's going to really start heating up October, November, and December as they gear up, because they're going to hit the ground running in January. And what he told us is that everything that he's hearing in Tallahassee, all of the bad that we saw as the attack on home rule last year, expect that to come back this year as well. So while it may have been defeated in one form or another, don't expect it to go away. For example, and in specific, the sovereign immunity, expanding the sovereign immunity limits towards municipalities, he fully expects that to come back. The financial disclosures, remember that that went down in the court case. Expect that to perhaps come back in a different iteration. I know the lawyers for each side are kind of reviewing the court decision on that, but expect some version of that to come back in this session. The Airbnb, he said, is not quite as clear because the governor's veto message was very specific, and there's some trepidation by lawmakers to bring something back that's going to get vetoed by the governor. So while the cities could use some relief on the Airbnb issue, hold your breath, because that may not percolate up in this particular session. I know it's all good news, right? Impact fees and other fees towards the cities that we may not be able to see in the future. These are all things to expect to come back into the next legislative session. So don't put your guard down. Be ready to fight next year, and it's coming sooner than we think. You know, the fall holidays will be here quick, and then the session will be off and running in early January. But he was basically saying, please don't sit on our laurels and be prepared, because these issues are coming back, and probably coming back with a vengeance. So be prepared. And that's all that I have for tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I did have a resident come forward that made a suggestion that I wanted, at least maybe we can do a small pilot program on. Is they talked about how we have that sand over at the Public Works building, that maybe we could find a spot, and it might be better served in a park that's attended, that has an attendant at, that maybe we do, we look at bocce as an option to utilize that sand. I'm not sure how. I don't think people are just carrying around bocce balls in their car to do it, but it was a suggestion that I wanted to at least bring up that staff can maybe look into. We had a resident that brought that up. I want to encourage the residents. This is a situation in which your voice means more than ours, especially in Tallahassee. Send a letter to the governor to not veto some kind of change for the Airbnb issue. It should not be a one solution fits all Florida situation. And, you know, what is good for the Panhandle is not necessarily good for heavily populated Broward County. So this is a situation in which your word is going to mean something. Contact them, send them letters, let them know that you're not okay with just flat out vetoing anything that makes a change to the Airbnb policy or law that the state has, and preempting us and not giving us the ability to put in place something that works for our city is the wrong approach. So please let them know that. I would encourage everybody to do that. You know, the Tigner Center event was phenomenal. It was a big source of pride to see that open up and move forward. What I love about it is we didn't raise taxes to do it. We didn't. We went out for a bond. We utilized your tax dollars the right way without raising taxes to do it. Failed candidate Hers is running a little cartoon of saying that I'm taking money out of old ladies' pockets, and one of the things I'm carrying is the thing that says our new bonds that we put in place. And yet the first people in line to get the free food are the people that told us not to do it. There's a great sense of pride that I have to watch people that said, don't do the Tigner Center. Do not take that bond out because I want to save a couple bucks. Please don't do the Braithwaite Center, and yet are the first people in line trying to take credit for actually being there when they didn't want it in the first place. That's a huge sense of pride for me. I love it. Glad to see that done. And I want to thank staff for it. But there's one person that I failed to thank that day, who was there, and I didn't see her until afterwards. But former Commissioner Gloria Battle from District 2, was one of the elected officials who voted to move forward with those bonds that allowed us the ability to do Braithwaite Center, to do the Tigner Center, and even do some of the things that we were hopeful to do here at City Hall. She championed that early on. She supported it. Commissioner Preston came in and did a great job of supporting it as well, and continued on that legacy, and then added the cherry on top, which is the proper naming of these facilities, which I thought was really the right thing to do. Because if you want to lift up an area, and I talked about it with the Adams brothers, one of the things you want to do, lift up areas, you recognize some of the pioneers of your city. And it was nice that we've been able to do that. So Commissioner Battle, I'm sorry I missed you on Saturday to thank you for your support on that. Other than that, I believe that's all I have. I do want to thank staff for the grant that they got for the Sawgrass to Seagrass. I am confident that when that project is completed, the same people that said don't do it will be the first ones in line to get their pictures taken in front of it. So looking forward to having that there.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?